We should be live. I think it's going. I think it's working. Here, I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna monitor it here.
Something's happening.
Yeah, but
it really just streams live?
Sort of.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it does, but I'm gonna shut that down so it doesn't eat my bandwidth, and then I'm gonna monitor it on my phone. It just makes my life easier because it looks fine right now. But yeah, dude, boom shakalaka. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 28. I'm very excited as I get this distractingly pulled up here. There we go. Boom.
All right.
The stream thing, I'm new. I'm new doing the stream thing.
Okay.
So the first 20-something I did, they were all pre-recorded, and then I immediately uploaded them as soon as we're done.
Okay.
Figured out the technology a little bit better, and so, yeah, that's why we're trying to go live now. So
I see.
On me again.
I should have, I didn't know how you did it. I was going to, tell people to watch it, but I didn't know how soon it would be up, so I didn't want to just be like, hey, because I hate that. Things are coming.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Tell me when it's there.
I know exactly. Thank you. The only time I've ever done that, even with this podcast, is a couple times. So tonight or tomorrow morning, I might make an announcement, like a hey, had John on the podcast. Check it out. It's going live at 7:00 tonight or whatever. Link in bio or what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, you're 100% correct. It's just so fucking annoying and cliche. And then if your shit doesn't drop.
Well, yeah, people forget anyway. Like, there's no. Like, if I mean, you asked me to be on this when I had some of those videos out, but let's just say that you had known that I was working on them. I almost would have been like, I'm not coming on here until there's something to go look at, because like people won't remember. They'll be like, wasn't John talking about having a YouTube show? What the fuck was that called? They need to be able to go, oh, what is that? Well, let's look. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'll bookmark that. Or
it's interesting you brought that up, because that's actually been kind of a point of contention when coming to scheduling the podcast and getting certain guests on.
Yeah.
So certain guys are like, well, I don't have anything to promote. I don't want to come on yet. It's like, hold the phone.
Yeah.
It's actually better if you come on and people can get to know you and get interested in you.
Yeah.
And then you come on again and promote your shit later. Because if you just came on just to promote your show or your new album or whatever it is that this proverbial guest is working on, first of all, we can't fill 2-3 hours on that. And second of all, it'll seem disingenuous and people will see right through it. So it was a matter of timing. Like, I had been meaning to reach out to you, but I'm like, fuck, dude, that dude doesn't know me for shit. He's not going to want to fucking come do this petty ass podcast. Let me get a handful of episodes out first. And then all of a sudden, randomly, I seen you started something and I was like, fuck it, now's the time. Because now he has something that's also starting out. So let's start there for people that don't know who you are, which is going to be surprising for a lot of the people that watch podcasts. Most people are going to know who you are, but I do have some people that aren't integrated into the classic Minneapolis music industry. John Wheeler, formerly of Screaming Monkey Boner originally, and then switched to Screaming Mechanical Brain because you got signed, correct?
Oh, that's a common myth, and it's interesting that I've only ever.
Let's put this to bed now. Then, okay.
I've never encouraged. Well, it was because of opportunity cost, but it was very specifically, and I don't know why it stuck so well. Maybe I used to lie and say that. I don't remember. I tell a lot of fibs, but I think we directly changed it because Mindless Self-Indulgence wouldn't have us on tour with them with that name, which seems really weird, but it's completely true. Like, that sounds made up. Like, why would they care? But their promotion people were like, that. Like, 2005 was an awful year. I mean, that era of time was like really bad and weird for music, because I think people were at the height of taking things too seriously. I mean, the Butthole Surfers used to be like a big MTV thing a few years before that. And it kind of turned into like, well, now everything's like the Strokes or like emo hardcore with tight pants. And it's all very like, this is serious, man.
So what the fuck was going on in 2004? Because I remember talking to Dave Rogers from American Head Charge, and he said 2 things killed their band. System of a Down and September 11th.
September 11th did a number on them. I remember that because their album artwork had a tank with like an American flag on it running over a baby, which is exciting. And it came out like right when September 11th happened. It dropped. I don't remember if it was like the week after or the week before.
I think it was the week before.
Yeah, they were like, well, here it is. And it was getting pulled off shelves and like,
and it was called The War of Art or something like that.
Yeah, it had war in it. It had, well, because all of that stuff was still fun right up until, because September 11th happened. I was born September 6, 1980. So I turned 21 and 4 days later, the fucking party was over. I was like, oh, I'm an adult now. And they're like, no one's an adult anymore.
Have you ever heard of George Carlin's, it's one of his very last specials. I kind of like to see a lot of people die.
Yeah. Yeah.
He filmed a special, for the listeners that have no idea what I'm talking about. George Carlin filmed a special. I believe it's called I Kind of Like to See a Lot of People Die. And it was about like mass shootings and killings and stuff like that. He filmed this special on September 9th and 10th.
Yeah. I heard about that.
2001. Yeah. And now I think you can still get the audio out there. But he never released the video special.
It's like a bootleg you can sort of find.
Yeah, I think you can get it on
there,
Amazon. But yeah, that shit fucked up a lot of people, dude.
It did, and I would say that it was it was worse than all of this bullshit right now for like a minute, but it got better faster. And the other thing though is COVID you can joke about. Like everything's a huge joke now, and I almost wish I would either have been born or started a music career like 10 years later or 10 years earlier if I was gonna do Screaming Monkey Boner. Like I would have, like in the 90s it would have flown probably pretty well, and then like right now, like no one gives a fuck about like, oh, you banned us to be like serious. We weren't jokey, but it was like the Butthole Surfers where it was more just like, oh, it's just upsetting and
you
weird.
Guys were fucking insane, but you were awesome. Like you were such a good band, dude.
I got lucky there.
I don't know if we ever actually played together. If we did, if those two bands ever, or if that band ever played with one of my bands, it would have been at the garage. We would have opened for you, but it would have been on the main stage because I think we played that. You remember that shitty side room at the garage?
Oh yeah,
I think we played that once. Yeah. It was our first time there. The booker immediately came up to us as soon as we got off stage, didn't even get our gear off, and he's like, you guys aren't playing side stage ever again. I want to book you on main stage, and I'm going to book you in front of a good band. And I think it was you guys, because I can't imagine what other reason I would have ever been at the garage to see you. But I distinctly remember seeing Screaming Monkey Boner at the garage. I remember, I think it was your bass player had this like, I think technically nowadays we would define it as like an emo haircut, but the haircut wasn't irrelevant. It was like this like really strong blood red or blue or something like that.
We all matched our outfits to our hair for a while there. Like we would wear like all orange with orange hair and like
that's what it was. And this motherfucker was going off. I'm almost 100% positive it was your bass player, and he was like spinning around and fucking. I just remember not only was the music good, but it was theatrical, it was colorful, it was insane over the top. And dude, like, I'm not kissing your ass because you're on the podcast. I've been a huge fan of yours for a long time. Like, you are one of probably the most well-respected and talented musicians / producers, whatever you want to call it, in this industry here locally. Like, a lot of people know who you are, and a lot of people that matter in this town know who you are and give you the respect that I kind of just went off about.
And isn't that weird? I'm not doing the bashful thing. I appreciate all that. Isn't that weird? Oh, I love that movie. But it was because initially everybody hated me and thought the band was kind of a joke. Like before, I think it's like everything where it's like, well, once 500 kids started showing up, it shut a few people up. But there's also, I got to experience a lot of really weird. Like, people would get mad at me and they'd be like, how come you guys get to do this? You're not even serious. I'm like, well, we're serious. We're just not taking ourselves serious. We're doing this for real and buying expensive equipment and maintaining a van, and I'm seriously doing it. They'd be like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, I don't know, man. Your thing that sounds like the Deftones is great and all, but it's like, just try to make a bit more of an artistic statement, like with whatever. And people were weird back then.
For real. And like, I used to kind of do the same thing. I was in a metal band and like, we were quote unquote serious, right?
Yeah.
I didn't act like that on stage. I would run around all flamboyant and act all gay and shit and run around like a drag queen. I wasn't dressed in drag, but I would do the fucking gayest shit on stage because I didn't give a fuck if you thought I was gay or thought I was straight.
You got to be fabulous.
The biggest thing is I what I would have said to those people and what I did say to a lot of guys, they're like, why do you run around like a fag on stage? And I'm like, here's why, dude. Because all of you look the same on stage. You play the same sounding music and you all stand there with these fucking serious looks on your faces like you're the coolest thing in the room, dude. And it's like, our music is serious, our band is serious, but I don't take myself serious enough to stand up there and try to look cool. Look at me. Look at me. Back in the day, I'm 155 pounds and I'm 6 feet tall. I look like a giant stick figure walking around on stage. Am I going to really put on a mean face and intimidate anyone? No. So I would do the Carlton dance on stage and shit, just get goofy with it. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck. So I feel you on that. Like, you didn't take yourself seriously, but you definitely, you could tell that you guys took your art seriously.
Oh yeah, that was,
you worked your asses off.
That was the weird thing where I definitely say that I got lucky with. I've had multiple lineups actually that were very, very, very good over the years. And I would say that I don't know that I've ever been in a band where at least we didn't have just like a machine for a drummer, like whoever it was. Even like Blue Felix, when I joined that, and Anthony, the drummer that was in that band, when the big, huge kid that would always wear like a gas mask and had like super long hair, that kid was like, that guy could have filled in as like Slipknot's actual drummer and you wouldn't have noticed. It'd be like, all right, like he was just blah, 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 blah. I've never had to put up, for some reason, even though
bad drummer.
Yeah, or really a bad band, like ever. Even the original Monkey Boner lineup, I didn't know very much about music when I started doing it. Like, I'm not some classically trained guy. Like, well, I mean, I've picked a lot of things up over the years, but back then I was like, I kind of understood the keyboard. I kind of understand how songs went. But it was more, for me, I was always a Manson fan and a White Zombie, and it was like the spectacle was more important, but somehow I roped in people who were very good. Like, new things that I didn't know at all, and I would be
let me ask you this.
Just like, here, do it like that, and they'd figure it out, but I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a diminished seventh, like, I don't know.
So SMB was your first band?
Yeah.
And you started that from scratch?
Yeah.
What possessed you to get into music in the first place?
Oh, nothing very, what do I want to say, lofty or anything. It was really just the exact time that I was coming of age was when MTV was still kind of cool. Even my mom would tell you to this day that when I was a little kid and like MTV was new, and I can't believe my parents could afford cable at this point, but I guess they did for a while. They were like, I would just sit and stare at like the talking heads and stuff. She was like, it was like crack for me. Like, she'd change the channel, I'd be no longer so interested in TV. And I mean, I was like a little before kindergarten probably. And so like, and I really loved all the weird stuff about it, and that was just a thing. And then the '90s started being like bands like Rammstein and Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails started being really popular, and I just thought all of that was so cool. I'm like, it was monkey see, monkey do. That's part of the joke, is that like I saw that and like, well, I want to do that. And I mean all of it. It's like, I want to be on the 5 o'clock news getting protested. I want to be getting blown by 2 girls at once. I want to. Oh, and then I guess there'll be some songs in there. But the songwriting was like I just had a shitty keyboard. I was like, I didn't know how to do chords. I'd be like, okay, well, this part goes like this. But then I'd rope in these dudes that are just fucking really knew what they were doing. So I was like, I got later in life, I'd always hear about, I could play jazz piano like now, but I couldn't then. And I'd hear like James Brown and stuff. He would just be like, it got me like, oh, and then, and he just, this room full of like fucking amazing old school guys that just have to figure out what he means. And I feel like that. I would just take mushrooms every weekend and sit and just record like on a 4-track tape recorder and one of my keyboards for hours, and then like go back over it sober with people and be like, okay, so like that part's cool. Can that be something? And this part's cool. And that's like the process of assimilation. That 2004 record was like the result of me on mushrooms kind of learning how to do music and just recording myself, and then having other people kind of be like, okay, well, like, this can't go on for like this long. This is like, this keyboard riff for this song is like, you were doing it for like 19 minutes. But if it happens in the song twice at 10 seconds a pop, it's pretty neat. So how about that? And then the bass line will be this and whatever else. And our first good drummer, Brian, we had there was a point, and we started in 97. It was like my high school.
Yeah.
And that version of it kind of, we probably played like 2 shows in the first 3 years of existence.
Sure.
And then I kind of grew up a little and figured it out. But yeah, the guys that you would have seen by the time they were involved and kind of went on the biggest part of the ride, I guess, really helped translate that from just like drug-addled art garbage into like really well put together drug-addled art garbage.
It was really good. And that's the thing, that's what I'm curious about is like, were you guys like that level of successful right out of the gate, or did that take a long time to build?
It took a while, but I think part of that too is like there's people like if the band sounding the way it did in 2004 and 5 had just dropped out of the sky, I'll bet it would have gone pretty quick. Because not much of the momentum we had was based off anything we were slopping our way through in 1998. There was just me and a couple of kids like trying to figure out how a band works with no internet.
Okay, so it kind of popped once you guys got good, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was very shortly after it was like, oh, we put out a record that you can actually listen to, recorded at an actual studio, and then started having this really tight lineup. And but I think that also gave me time to learn a few things about how it was like presented. And me and some of the other guys like, oh, you got to have wild album artwork and you got to do this and that. So we wouldn't have known that right away.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, because you guys started that band, like you said, you were still technically in high school. You're only
like 16 or something.
You're only a couple years older than me, though.
Yeah.
And so in 97, I would have been like 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm technically still in middle school. Didn't even hear about you guys yet, right?
No, and no one would have at that point. That was just high school band.
But all of a sudden, by the time I'm 17, okay, and I'm playing out or getting ready to play out, and people are like, hey, man, we got to go check out this band. We got to check out this band. And we hadn't even played a show yet. And ironically, the lineup I'm talking about never ended up even playing a show. But we were already thinking about these things. Like, we got to figure out a way to, like, get to know these guys and go out and see these bands. And your guys' name came up. And there was a few other local bands at the time whose name came up. And still never saw you. And then that same group, by about 16, 17, about a year or two later, I actually did have a lineup that was starting to book shows. I think our first show, if I remember right, was at the Enigma Center. Do you remember that place?
Yeah, I do.
It was like a youth center.
It was, but where was that?
I want to say it was in like Bloomington.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking of
or Egan or something.
God, what the hell was that? The Elk River Emporium is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't that.
That was a thing. The Enigma. Yeah. I remember that. It's so weird.
So the reason I'm going on this little spiel here is because it sounds to me very much like for a while you guys struggled, learned the ropes, and paid your dues just like every other band.
Oh, yeah.
But then all of a sudden you got good and it popped. Which wasn't overnight. It still took years to get to that point. And I'm fascinated about this because so many people think this band just came out of nowhere. And it's like in my case, when I start getting that shit from random people who are like, wow, I've never heard of you guys. You guys are so good. Like, it's like, no, here's the thing is this band technically came out of nowhere. But I wrote this music 5 years ago. I've been struggling to get the right lineup together. And more importantly from that, every single member of this band has been doing music, performing music live in a professional setting for almost 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
So this shit didn't come out of nowhere either. Like, we paid our dues. We learned the ropes. We understand all these things now. And I was just curious about that because I didn't really, like, we've known of each other for years.
Well, you used to be Jared Cantor, correct?
Yep. And technically, all I did is translated my last name. I didn't change it.
What is that? Like Hebrew or something? Singer? Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly. It's the Kantor is the literal Yiddish word for singer.
Yeah. I think I'd heard that somewhere.
Yeah, and so all I did is because number one, like, that was my grandfather's last name.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be a Cantor, right? Because that was my mom's maiden last name because my mom wasn't even married. So even if my mom was married, I would have been somebody else, and I was raised by a guy with a different last name, not part of that family. And so that combined with the fact that my wife's name is Kate, she wasn't really too excited about Kate Cantor.
It sounds like a character in a Superman comics. Like, this is Kate Cantor. She's our #1 photographer lady.
Yeah, the reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lois Lane's fucking bitter rival, Kate Cantor.
Yeah, she works over at like the Daily Globe or something and hates the Daily Planet.
She's got a background as a porn star. No one will take her seriously. And she hates Lois because she gets all the good stories. Like, she's basically the female Flash Gordon for Peter Parker, right?
And for middle name,
not Flash Gordon, but was it Flash Thompson?
Flash Thompson. Yeah, if her middle name also started with a K, she'd be in big trouble. That doesn't look good on a business card.
So yeah, we just translated it when we got married. We just decided to translate just like a lot of immigrants do. You know, they translate their name or shorten their name. So we didn't really even change it. We just translated it to American English, and it sounds better. All the kids' names will sound great with it. Her name sounds good with it.
Yeah.
We're kind of starting our own family now, our own traditions, you know, because I'm not really a Cantor. I'm not really a Bustrom. I'm not really any of those other family names I could have or should have had. So we were like, fuck it. We'll just do it this way.
It's fun that is and that makes sense. And new traditions are just as important as old ones, I always feel, but because it's for those of us who are currently alive to enjoy anyway. So what's the fucking, you know, but I'm like the opposite though, because my name is John Wesley Wheeler the Fourth. Like I literally like have the same name as my great grandfather. Yeah, but it sounds like I'm way too important compared to reality. Well, it's fun because my great grandfather was involved to some degree with John Wesley Harding, who was a guy in Jesse James's posse.
Oh, that's cool.
And something happened where I don't know if he saved him from some fate or something like that, but he named his son after him. He's like John Wesley Wheeler, named his first son after John Wesley Harding. And I think that's mainly why it got kept. They're like, well, this is a little too cool for like just to get rid of that. And I agree, and it makes for a fun story that sounds made up, but
it's pretty sweet though. And it's a classy sounding name.
I know, I really should have done something with my life. I should have been like a CEO of a company. John Wesley Wheeler the Fourth has tanked yet another company, so we're gonna elect him president.
Well, let's be honest, man. You've really lived the dream. A lot of us don't appreciate how lucky we are. There's millions of music fans in this state, in this country, billions across the world love music, love it more than we do. Believe it or not, there's music fans out there that love music more than we do, and they would cut off both testicles to be able to do what we do, which is make music, create a song from scratch. And then there's millions, John, of musicians who can make music but have never gotten lucky enough to make it on stage. And then there's millions of those guys who have been on stage but never had the privilege of playing in front of a large crowd. And then there's millions of those guys who played in front of large crowds but never had the privilege of having some kid scream back or sing back your lyrics to you and experience that level of euphoria. So the level of privilege, dude, that we've been able, I mean, we really have lived the dream. And I think a lot of people don't really understand or appreciate this. There's very, very little difference between guys at our level and guys at the Metallica level. Like, believe it or not, there's really not that much. Once you get to this level, it's all about who you know. Can you get to that next level and the next one above that and the one above that? That's who you know. Are you pleasant to work with? Because once you get to this level, you've already proven you're good. You've already proven that people dig your shit, right? It's just, can you run a business now? Can you operate like a real team? That's the difference between guys at our level and that level up there. And I'm just saying, man, you know, we can make fun of ourselves and be like, oh, you know, we haven't done shit with our lives. We're almost 40
and I
years
always
old.
will.
So do I. But at the same time, let's appreciate really what we have been able to do, because it's fucking hard, man. I mean, first of all, the country we're in, like, dude, there's I do
not real supportive of the arts.
I do deep dives in YouTube every once in a while, and every once in a while I'll watch these videos. I'll find Middle Eastern metal bands. And there's a law that was in Iraq all the way through fucking 2004 or whatever, when we finally got Saddam. Every single band at every single show had to make one song a tribute to Saddam.
That sounds like...
And if you didn't, you would be shot during your performance.
And
so there was bands that I would watch, and there'd be like subtitles at the bottom of the screen translating their lyrics, and it'd be like praising Saddam, right? And they'd have to play that song at the beginning, and then they would go into a second song, and that song would be like super anti-Saddam. That was okay, as long as there was a song praising Saddam. It was the most bizarre shit. Like,
so what you're saying is the rules weren't as tight as North Korea.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
it's actually a pretty loose spot.
Right. But it's not like us, where it's like, no, dude, you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like in music, how many times have we seen bands go on trial and win under freedom of speech and expression laws? Ozzy Osbourne.
I don't know if anyone's ever lost. Has anyone lost? Like, like Frank Zappa or Ozzy or, oh, God, who else? Didn't Rob Halford had to sit in there once, too?
I think a lot of bands have.
Well, yeah, that was a weird thing. There was like an era.
Jim Morrison?
Yeah, well,
he exposure thing, but he still eventually he went to jail, but eventually that was expunged under freedom of expression because it was an act that people paid to go see. It wasn't in public. It was in private.
He was very careful about which group of thousands of people he took his wiener out in front of. Like, are they all here to see your wiener? It's like, probably, man. Like, okay,
but we're just so lucky to have even been able to do this in the first place.
Oh, I know. I went through a bitter phase a few years ago. And I've come around to being like, I've gotten away. I got to go on a pretty wild ride basically twice. I mean, when I was in, it was specifically Crash Anthem by the time I was playing with Wally.
Let me pause you there.
The Blue Felix thing was almost as crazy as the SMB thing.
I want to do,
which is weird because I jumped in halfway through. You know,
I want to keep my. Excuse me, guys. That's not a COVID cough. Don't worry.
That's just drugs, folks.
It's my poorly managed cardiovascular system and too many cigarettes combined with coffee on an empty stomach.
Oof.
Ugh, man. Sometimes you get those coughs, think you want to puke. I hate those. Those are the worst. Okay, so I just want to stick on SMB before I forget all the questions I had in my mind. Because if you notice, I don't write anything down.
Yeah,
I don't actually
bad about
this shit.
Diving all over time as if 25 years happened all at once. So.
That actually makes for a better podcast. But so I don't lose my train of thought because I get the most shit. Right? No one ever criticizes you guys for jumping all over the place and getting ADD. People rip me to shreds, and they're nice enough not to do it on the comments. You know what they do? They call me, they text me,
dude,
and they message me on fucking social media. You need to shut the fuck up and stop interrupting your guests so much. And I was like, dude, I was confused. like, fuck, man. Anyways, okay, so SMB had a wild run. You guys didn't actually get signed.
No.
But there was a reason you changed your name to Screaming Mechanical Brain, and it was literally because we were coming from the PC discussion and all that kind of shit. Where I was trying to figure out what the fuck was happening in 04, because I remember like bands like American Head Charge having a hard time, and then I remember Goodyear Pimps being signed to Disney, and they eventually got dropped.
They did,
but. There's just like, I don't remember what was going on in the early 2000s where suddenly we had this sensitivity problem. I don't remember this.
You know what I would call it? I would. Here's what I think happened, and it's that the music industry was just starting to fall apart, and so when people have the idea that things are scarce, they tend to get a lot more. In the old-fashioned sense of the word, a lot more conservative. They're like, I can't let anybody else have anything. I gotta have it all. So there became this like zero-sum game of like, okay,
that's right. I remember this
because now they've kind of bounced back a little now, and it's again like I said, it was the worst time ever to be at the peak of your band because SMB probably could have gotten a lot further if the timing had been like either 10 years before or even 10 years after. When it's like, oh yeah, this is wild. Like Skrillex won a Grammy. It's like I don't think anybody cares. So specific about holding fast to all these old school ways of thinking about things as much, but they were slipping, but they were still trying to run it the old way, and money was getting really tight, and like so all the decisions were just incredibly like no, let's just keep doing what works. Everything got really boring.
So what you're getting at, if I remember right now, because I think I am remembering this as you're saying this, this was. What you mean by the industry falling apart is we started seeing the emergence. This is post. Simple things like Napster and straight illegal downloading, but this was still before iTunes became a standard.
Yep.
This is before Pandora existed. This is before Spotify existed. So album sales were going down for a number of reasons, for economic reasons, because we were still in a bad spot post 9/11 for the economy. Number two, 9/11 and what it did culturally. So certain bands, scary shock bands, evil bands, whatever you want to call them, those bands weren't selling well. And so you're right, because I think if I remember right, this is also right around the time of Janet Jackson's titty popping out during the Super Bowl.
Yeah. That was right in that same run of years there.
Like Britney Spears was at the top. Like, so everything was very cookie cutter in popular music. You had even seen kind of the death or the beginning of the end of nu metal.
Yep.
So bands like Korn were already not doing as well as they were 2-3 years before that. And you started seeing the entrance of bands like Creed and Nickelback and these, again, cookie cutter. So whether it's this genre or that genre, I do remember what you're talking about. I guess I just didn't really understand what was going on, partially because I was a little young around that time. I'm 20 years old, naive, fucking no idea. But also, I wasn't really in the industry yet. I was just trying to fucking get my band off the ground and get to playing shows. We started, I think we played our very first show when I was like 18. So that'd have been like 2002.
Yeah.
But it was a joke, and then we played a few parties, and they were jokes. And then I think our real first actual show was the Enigma Center, where somebody else booked it. And that wasn't even a real show. And then the second real show was at the garage on the side stage. Can we even consider that a real show? You know what I mean? Like
I would, but
so my first real show was, if we ever played together, it would have been me opening for you on the main stage in the garage. And it was funny because we probably played to 40 kids, but then you guys fucking showed up. You were headlining, and that fucking place was packed. There had to be 800 kids in that room. There was a lot more than 5.
There was some nights when it was even like they stopped counting because of fire code, but kind of just let it like whatever, like just
this was
pile them in.
Nights.
It was dangerously, and that's out of everything that happened, my favorite thing to do, and I guess it's like chasing the dragon, because going through a period of less interest later made it rough, because even not in Minnesota for a while there, the shows would be these like out of control mayhem. I love mayhem. Like it's a thing I've always liked. It's like all these guys would like show up wearing dresses, and like someone would get like a broken arm, and like someone be like climbing the ceilings and shit. And like I love that. I love that late 70s punk rock lunacy. And I feel like that perhaps when I talk about maybe it would have been better if I was younger and it started like in a later period of time. But I think that was on its way out a little bit too. Like that whole like,
I don't know. I think that's just kids. I think that's just, you guys did a brilliant job of marketing to children, which is where you get real fans. And when I say children, I mean like 12 to 18 years old.
Yeah,
children,
high school kids and
like
shit.
like not like 5 years old. I'm not saying
we weren't the Wiggles, but that would have been probably more lucrative.
But there's too many bands, regardless of what style or sound, that play 18 plus and 21 plus shows only, because people can drink and bars make money when people. All of those things are true, but those people are out looking to go see live music. They're going to forget about you in 5 years when you're no longer around. They might maybe become a fan if you're really good and you blow up, but the kids, they'll be fans for life.
That reminds me too. That you bring that up. I haven't thought about this in a long time. That was a concerted, on purpose effort. That was, I always was bitching about how like, okay, well, like when you get big, look at all these people at these big outdoor concerts. They're all fucking kids. Like the kids that go crazy. Oh, your stuff's in Hot Topic and da-da-da-da. And it's like, why are you getting at them through an ocean of people in their late 20s at a bar? Like you're not playing for whoever you're going to be playing in front of once you're big. Like you absolutely, it's going to be different people. And then I remember reading something, I think it was Limp Bizkit, but they said that they would go out of their way to do all ages shows, and they would hand out flyers like when like high school was getting out. Like they'd like they'd dress weird, and that's what we did. We gave out like CDs with one song on it or something like that, and flyer just schools that were in the area of anywhere that would allow you to do all ages, the garage being one of the bigger places that did that, but other places too. And wouldn't you know that once we had a half good product, even where it was like, oh, we're all colorful, everybody's solid, there was that we were talking about, but it was also, we just started direct marketing to younger people, and then they all showed up, and then then we had fans for life, and we were able to do show trades and be like, hey, you there in Des Moines, you want to play in front of like hundreds of people, like, hey, biggest band we can find. Well, yeah, we'll hook you up with that, kids. They'll buy your shirts. They'll go crazy if we can come down and play your CD release party.
They fucking did.
And that's how we got in front of hundreds of people in within 10 hours of here all the time. And that's how we became a thing that bigger things like Mindless Self-Indulgence or Foxy Shazam or whatever it was would be like,
you guys opened for Foxy?
Oh, they're some of my best friends.
No fucking way, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit, dude. That is one of
Except for that they don't live around here. But
that is one of my favorite fucking bands. I got to go full fanboy on my own podcast. Dude, introducing.
Yep.
That's their, for listeners that have no idea what we're talking about right now. It's called, their first album is called Introducing, so it's like introducing Foxy Shazam. And
they had Eric on the crowd surfing like that. Yeah. That was at a real show too. That was just a show on tour.
That fucking album, that album is an absolute masterpiece.
Yes, it is.
One of the best fucking things I've ever heard in my life. My guitar player Dalton, who used to be in -3 and Johnny Rook, he's jamming with me now. He introduced me to them way back in the day. Probably some fucking very likely around on a small tour here somewhere. Maybe even you guys opened for him. And dude, I became such a big fan of that band. They're one of the few bands still to this day that no one knows what I'm talking about. I go, have you heard of Foxy Shazam? They go, who? I play it for them, and they're like, dude, this is pretty good.
Oh, it was so wild live too. And Eric and Sky to this day, like, how you doing, buddy? Like because that was the funny thing with them. Oh, also a side note is my fiance, she actually had friends that knew who they were, and when she didn't know who I was back in the day, she was a little younger than me, and she was like, wait a minute, like, that's that guy that knows them, and she's like, yeah, who? Like, she didn't know who they were, but a bunch of her friends did, like, from like school. Like, it was weird. But that was the thing with them too, where it was like, they would go before us in like Cincinnati, Ohio, where they were from, and then they got way bigger than us, and that was just where all of that show trading stuff, so we could play in cities that we didn't live in and not just play to the sound guy, as most tours tend to be, through a system of just looping people. That's why, like, our shows at the garage also would have like 5 bands from out of town opening, because we're like, well, we don't really need much local support, and then these guys, it's like, well, now we can get a big show in Chicago off these guys and a big show in Detroit off these guys, and we'll just bring them all here at once, and I'll order them in whoever got us the bigger show out of town.
You know, that sounds weird to a lot of people that don't understand what we're talking about, but it makes perfect sense to me, because you don't, once you're drawing 500 to 1,000 or 1,500 people to see your band locally, you don't need local support anymore. You have it.
Yeah,
you need to build a fan base somewhere else. So when you play a local show at that level, you're not really doing it for your own gain, meaning financial or exposure or record sales. Is what you're really doing it is because your fans want to see you play.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to leverage the equity you've built, which is the crowd size, so you can turn around and you can get what he just said, a band from Detroit, a band from Des Moines, a band from Sioux Falls, where they also draw 500 kids as the headliner in their town. You get them in front of you. They all get to play in front of the biggest crowd they've ever played for in the city of Minneapolis. And then now you took one show locally and turned it into 3 shows in the region. And you can do this, you guys, you can do this with bands on the coasts. You can do this if in Minnesota, we used to do it with Canadian bands. Because what's that fucking giant city directly north of us?
Is that Thunder Bay that's right there? Or is that, where is that?
Well, Thunder Bay is there, but there's one of the big cities, like the only big city in the middle of Canada is like literally directly north of Minneapolis, and it's escaping my mind right now.
It's not Toronto, because that's the one that's by Detroit.
Yeah, that's over on the East Coast by New York.
Windsor?
No, they got a fucking hockey team. Is it Winnipeg?
Might be. Oh, it's probably Winnipeg.
Is it Winnipeg?
Because I think that's more in the center of Canada, which we're in the center of the United States.
I think it is Winnipeg. There was a short period of time where there was a couple really, really good fucking Canadian bands, and they would come down here and play. And I remember we had a hard time taking advantage of the show trades because everybody in Minneapolis, one of your band members had a fucking DWI and couldn't get into Canada.
Oh yeah, there's a Blue Felix story about that's great too.
All right,
but
before we get to
but
Blue
I won't
Felix,
skip
though.
all the way. That's a few bands in the future.
So we don't have to go through any of the melodrama or any of the heartbreaks of why Screaming Mechanical Brain broke up. I was mostly curious about you elaborating on why you changed your name, and that was strictly because of basically PC culture, marketing, conservative mindset, because they didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to invest, and I'm kind of recapping
that would
what
hurt
you said.
any of their chances, yeah.
Right. They didn't
No
want to
risks.
bring on a band that could scare away even one ticket buyer unless they were the draw, like a Slipknot or a Korn, or even a Marilyn Manson or an Alice Cooper. Those bands can still draw even though they're doing the shock rock.
Yeah,
thing,
because
right?
they built up their thing long before the big dip.
But other
Most of that was
bands
in
on
the
the
90s.
tour are looked at as risks.
Yep.
So they didn't appreciate that. So you guys literally, would you say that was short-sighted
Not well, of them or of us, you
of
mean?
you guys? To change
here's
your
what
name for that opportunity. Well, and
I'll
them,
tell you
and
what
them, I guess, and both.
I'll tell you what I should have done in a second, but I got to make something clear about the MSI tour too. We didn't buy onto that, and we went right before them every night. We got paid not a lot, but we got
For
paid.
people that are confused,
Oh, sorry.
what he means by buy on is there's certain ways the music industry has been ran for a while, and there used to be
Poorly.
something called buy on or buy in, and you would literally pay, I mean, fuck, what was it, dude? Sometimes as low as $500, sometimes as high as $15,000,
Yeah.
and then you would buy your way onto a tour.
Yep, and that and they have done it before us and since, even that particular group. I think we should have probably spent $15,000 for that month of dates or whatever, more, maybe 20. I don't know what the going rate was exactly. But it was a lot of goddamn money, and we didn't. But that was the thing. It was like, here's what we're gonna do, but we can't do it with that name. So I'm like, well, fuck me. I can't turn this down. And it was a good thing I didn't, because Mindless Self-Indulgence drew 1,500 to 2,500 people in every city we went to.
Right.
First Ave was one of the smaller places we played on that tour, and it was, everyone was inside by the time we were on, and also everyone liked it. I mean, it was like we could have gone on a similarly sized tour and had no one understand what we were doing or get angry, but I was running around in a dress just punching a guitar, and this was before LMF. This was before they came back a little. I just would get them. I'd have to find
I
them.
forgot about the guitar.
Oh yeah, I would just be just swearing to people and throwing shit. And it was Denver was one of my favorite things. I've never seen a crowd not, because we played in cities where we had draws, but it's extended past that a bit. And we'd never been to Denver before, so our first time there was with MSI, and I watched everybody there. We just came out. My intro sample was the Imperial March from Star Wars, back when it wasn't it was an old thing you remembered. It wasn't oh yeah, they're in Target now. It was a weird thing. Those kids seemed to know what it was. We walked out. We opened with ZYQ9, which is a really frantic, crazy thing. And I just watched everybody in the crowd kind of oh, we don't know who this is. And then go, ah! And then it just turned into an ocean of piranha, mayhem, we would have seen at the garage or something. They're like, I guess, yeah, okay, I get it. And everyone just went nuts, and it was just nuts the whole rest of the time. And we'd sell so much merch, and
that's the key.
Holy
that's the key.
fuck!
So because
we couldn't turn that down though, so we just we'll just change our name. We should have changed it back. I should have just been thanks guys. Because most people figured it out anyway. Because it was all still if we didn't changing something on a website in 2005. I don't know who to call about that. It was probably some guy that used to be in the band we fired 3 years ago, and it's just still sitting there. I don't know how that works.
That's hilarious.
So it'd be well, we kind of still were Screaming Monkey Butter, but we kind of were well, we went on this tour as this, so we should carry on. We should not have. We should have just flipped it right back. I think we thought maybe they'd take us out again, and we became pretty cozy with them, but that never happened. It was okay, guys, there's people with buy-on money that you had your fun, and it helped a lot. And that made it so we could go even when we were I was starting to be done with it. We could still go to Indianapolis, and there'd be 200 people there to see us. So it'd be okay.
Yeah, and let's just touch on that for a second, because I think in my experience, people condemn the buy-in theory, right? And I'm not completely against it if you are smart enough to look at it as an opportunity you can take advantage of. So for example, like I said, some of these buy-ons are as low as $500. Some of them are 15 grand. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You got to do the math and figure out this. Number one, are we going to immediately be able to recoup our money on this tour? If not, are we going to be able to go back to these cities? Is our ship tight enough? Is like your band, the stage presence is great, sounds great, songs are great. You got merch, you got everything you need to fucking like run a business as a music entity. And so when you go back into these towns, let's say you spent 15 grand to get on the tour, but you only made 10 grand back.
Yeah.
But next time, now you know all the booking agents, you've got rabid fans, at least 300 to 500 in each one of these towns.
Yeah.
Now you can go back and make $500 to $1,000 per night the first round, and there was 12 cities. Now you're making, let's say it's $1,000 to keep it easy. Now that's 12 grand. Now you're at 22. Now you're plus 7. So as long as that second trip didn't cost you 7, you're still in the black. That's what I mean when I go off on this podcast over and over and over again about running your shit like a business.
Oh,
that's what I mean. Is like, dude, you have to be fucking profitable.
Yeah.
Like, have a spreadsheet, guys. Like, list your expenses. Like, make sure you understand how much it costs you to do something and how much you made off of it. And just because you lost money on one opportunity doesn't mean you should never do it again. You need to figure out, did that cost us, or did we invest that?
Yeah.
Like this scenario, it was good for you guys because you went out on tour, even though it cost you money or you said you didn't buy onto that tour.
No, we didn't buy on. We've never done that once.
Hypothetically, if you had bought onto that tour, or the bands they ditched you for that did buy onto that tour, like you said, it was still worth it because there was 15 to 2,500 people at every single show.
Yeah.
If your shit's good enough and you playing for, what's the old adage we used to say way back in the day? Every show, if you just get one new fan, you're doing extremely well.
Yeah.
And that was and that was irrelevant to the crowd size, right? But that was developed when you're playing in front of 50 people. That's where that theory came from. It's because, dude, there's only 20 to 50 people here. Just get one of them to like your band and come to the next show. Mm-hmm. And then there's 2. And then one of them or both of them will bring somebody. Boom, now you got 4. And then all of a sudden you've got 30 and then 100 and then blah, 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 blah. If you got your shit together, and you know as well as I do from this tour, because I've experienced this, when you got your shit together and you go in front of a huge crowd and you fucking crush it, you get a lot more than one fan out of that show. A lot more. And you go back to that town again, you play in front of 1,500 people, you go back to that town again, if your shit's good enough, you'll have 500 just there for you.
Maybe
3 to 5.
Maybe 50, but you got to understand, when you tour around and no one knows who you are, the normal number is 0. True. So like 50 to 100 in a town you don't live in, also not on a weekend. You got on tour, you're out there every day. It's like really on Monday, 500 kids at curfews are going to show up to some bar that they're letting them have one all ages show at.
No, you're right.
There's some trickiness to it.
I'm also thinking about those like those
a good
Midwest
best case
towns
scenario, though, version of that. Yeah, like it is supposed to work like that, and to a degree it certainly does.
And I'm thinking of those Midwest towns, like, the fucking Des Moines, the Milltown, Wisconsins, where the place only holds 400 kids, but and there's only 118 people in the town, but it's the only music venue in 400 square miles.
It's the only game in town.
Yeah, so they'll get every kid in half the state. So you go play in front of 1,500 at fucking in Superior at whatever that fucking music venue is, not the one in Duluth, the one in Superior. If you kill it at that show and then you go to Milltown, you'll get 400 kids there to see you. We've been through that. We've experienced, and it sounds like you guys experienced that on that tour to at least a little bit of a degree.
Oh yeah, some places it was like gangbusters when we came back. What Florida and stuff was out of control.
In retrospect, what would have been, from a business aspect, what would have been a fair amount for you to have had to have paid in order to buy onto that tour, if you would have?
Yeah, that's a hard question, but I mean, I know what the going rate is. I would say that, like, maybe some people say it's $1 a head is what it's supposed to be. I've heard that, like, and especially if
per
it's like
show.
Sold. Yeah, so if it's like, there could be like $1,500 a show, and I by the way, I'll stay on course here, but I hate pay to play. I hate selling
I won't
tickets.
do it.
I fucking refuse. And there's many awards where I was super coked up and just started. I won something and I just started yelling at the crowd about it because I feel like it degrades.
I won't do it.
The quality of things.
And I'm not making a case for it.
Okay.
Is what I'm really saying is that, for example, if Metallica came to me and said, "Hey, we'll bring you on a 18 city tour.
Yeah.
But you got to pay $50,000."
That would probably be very worth it.
If and only if I have ready access to enough capital, meaning I got to be able to print enough T-shirts. I have to have an engine to sell and distribute those T-shirts. I better have enough fucking music on iTunes. I better have enough ways to make that money. Because if I just go on tour with a killer set list, it doesn't matter if they brought me out for free. I will gain 0 fans because they don't know how to find me. I can't leave a stamp behind. There's nothing for me to get out of that. But if I got every duck in a row and I got my ship running tight and my fucking bucket doesn't have any holes in it, I'm not leaking any water, I'll mortgage my fucking house and pay $50,000 to Metallica to go on tour with them because I can do that math. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I mean,
I still won't do it in general principle, but there's an exception, and they would never charge you to go on tour with them either. It's so preposterous. But I'm just putting it out there for context. Bring me the head of somebody
that we hate, and you can go, yeah, I mean, you would what? We don't need money, but see that you came across an interesting point. I didn't have a house to mortgage back then. I didn't have. I mean, I could probably just buy on to tour with money I'm sitting around. It'd probably be a bad idea at this point. I'm old, but
you know what I'm going to.
But that's the thing. I didn't have that back then. In the prime of my life, when I was doing these crazy things that everybody liked and I had the energy to do it, I'm like 24, 25. This is my big complaint with buy-on stuff, and it's that it really weeds out people that don't have rich parents. And because it's like if a bunch of 19-year-olds buy onto a tour for $50,000, oh yeah, what do they do? Like sell their cars or something? They don't have that. They don't even have a way to get that. And kids whose parents will throw 50, 80 grand around for them to go have fun in their band, not to mention just when they get tired of it, they're still going to put them through college. Like, you think those kids have any real heartache to sing about? That's why so many big bands are just like, this girl in my hometown broke my heart, because that's it. That's all they've experienced. They're not. The blues comes from struggle. Rock and roll comes from the blues. These guys haven't struggled, but guess what? They're the only thing you see because they have the money to do it because of their parents, which just starts. That's part of the reason why I just kind of threw my hands up and quit. I was like, because I quit. I didn't quit music altogether. I like making music. I write other people's records sometimes. I've signed a lot of NDAs, and some I haven't. We could talk about that a little later too. But I'm like, dude, I can't. I'm old. I have the money now, but I can't sleep on floors. Like, my back hurts. Like, I'm fucking, now that I could finally afford to do crazy shit like that, I'm not gonna do it. Nobody else. Who's gonna be in my band? A bunch of people with kids to pay for it. It's like, no. It's not gonna happen. So I'm like, comedy, there's no such thing as a buy-on. Right. It does not work like that at all. It is, at least for now, a meritocracy. And another thing that I like doing that I always meant to try, and also at a certain point you get old enough in bands, it's not so cute anymore. You can get as old as you want. You could be Don fucking Rickles. And be like, I love that guy.
As long as you're funny.
As long as you're funny, and you can get up there and do it. And a lot of people did it until they tipped over, like George Carlin and stuff.
And honestly,
you don't have to be sexy.
The ironic thing about comedy right now is, like, the hardest thing to be is a straight white guy.
Oh yeah,
because there's a million of us. No, and that's actually said regularly by bookers. Dude, listen.
Oh, I know.
I have a million funny straight white guys. Right now, I need anything other than that because my entire lineup is straight white guys. Like what makes you any different than these other 10 comedians that are going up tonight? And you go, well, exactly nothing. And they're all more experienced and funnier than you. So, like, you're not getting a shot at this club. But if you're not a straight white guy, you might get some opportunities. And I hear this from people in the industry regularly. And so you just got to bring it. It's a full meritocracy.
I think the end there. You got to bring it. I think that another God, someone made a really good joke about bands. Like, and I bring you the another trio of white guys with beards, the band. Like, just like, okay, here we go. But those guys are probably boring, and that's the thing. I have watched now. Boy, let me tell you, doing open mics and things, you don't know what bad comedy is until you do comedy. You can see a Netflix special, and it could be someone you don't particularly find all that funny, but they're pretty funny. They have a fucking Netflix special.
And they're still professionals. You can.
They're good. Yeah, they're good in one way or the other. It just may not be your taste. But if you want to watch a whole bunch of people like just not be funny at all,
go to a Minneapolis local open mic.
Probably anywhere though. But I mean, that's a real big thing when you realize when people talk about like, I'm not getting anywhere because nobody wants to see me do this. I'm like, no, it's probably because nobody wants to listen to you either. I will have one of those. I have it at about due. And I'm probably not going to be able to get all the way through it, but I want to just see what it tastes like now to me because it's been so long. This feels like a fun occasion for. Oh, heavily. I used to be kind of a huskier gentleman back in the day too.
You're gonna be in for a treat.
Oh, I'm gonna throw up probably.
It's mostly just. I wish it tastes like pure syrup to you.
I wish I would have brought my water in, but I need a little something here.
You do look great, by the way. I wanted to tell you that when you came in, man.
Oh, thank you.
You look fucking fantastic. It's not just the suit. You look good. Fucking. It's not just the haircut either. Like you look good. You look healthy. You look clean. You fucking smell good too. You must be a cologne guy.
I am. My lady got me one that she really likes, and she has good taste, so I can trust her. I'd never go buy my own cologne, but if she's like, oh, here.
I'm obsessed.
Eros Flame.
Eros Flame.
Yeah, it's one.
I'll check it out.
Like a Versace brand, I think.
Dude, I think I'm up to 22.
I like it. The trick is to just go easy on it. I just give myself one. But yeah, I mean, I worked out and was in my sauna, and I was like, okay, I got to rinse off and maybe put something on here because I'm gonna smell like hot dog shit if I don't.
I love cologne. I have a really sensitive sense of smell, and I can't stand shit that stinks. Right?
Yeah.
And I also have some pretty fucking strong BO. So if I forget to put deodorant on in the morning, by 10 or 11 o'clock, I can smell myself.
It's gonna be serious.
And not like no one else can smell it. It doesn't bug anyone. I've even asked people, and they're like, no, you smell fine. You smell like clean clothes. And I'm like, I can smell my own fucking... So it's literally like mostly my sense of smell. So I started wearing cologne or body spray or whatever back in like high school or just thereafter.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I used to get off stage and girls would always compliment me. And they'd be like, oh, my God, you actually smell good.
You smell better than you look, buddy.
And I'd be like, what do you mean actually? And they're like, most musicians stink.
I know.
That's a little trade secret for you guys.
You ever been like on a string of dates and you do the thing where you squat down and you accidentally get your own crotchal smell and you're like, bleh! Like, yep. Oh my God. Me and one of the other members of SMB, I think we were playing with Foxy Shazam in Ohio or something. I think this was. We had the sound guy stop our set because we smelled so bad. It was one of my favorite things because we were just putting on the same wet clothes from sweat. Like, what are we going to do? Go to the laundromat every other day? The schedules and the drives are just grueling. Yep. So we'd like hang them up in the trailers. Be like, well, at least they're not in here with us. And put them on. And we smelled like that gutter punk cat piss smell when you just get so nasty. And
vans are the worst.
Oh, God. The guy was like, he thought something had gone wrong. Like there was a gas leak or... He was like, guys, something's fucked up. And then he realized it was just so he stunk really bad. There was like people there and stuff. I also tried to set my stage shirt on fire and it wouldn't catch because it was so damp.
That's why I kept wearing cologne because like fucking even on the road, like, and I spray it right on my body. Yeah. So then when I sweat, it mixes with my sweat and my natural pheromones. And then it seeps into the clothes instead of the other way where it's like people... They spray it on their shirt, and then they sweat, and they take the shirt off, and then they just stink. So it would actually help the van smell better on tour. It really would. It really would. No, people would open up the door, and they'd be like, God, it doesn't even stink in here. And then somebody would be like, that's Jared's clothes in the back. Because I would also take my socks, the things that did stink, my socks and my boxers, and I'd put them in a fucking plastic bag and tie that shit
seal
shut.
Them up.
Like it's not even that hard to not stink on the road, but I got so sick and tired of smelling the same way every day.
Oh yeah.
It was when I got a really, really high-end office job doing credit card processing, and I was going in meeting clients and fucking. I wanted to smell good, but I got tired of the same cologne, especially like during the summer and the winter. So it started out I had like 4, one for each season. And then I found one that I really liked, but didn't want to wear out during the day. Yeah. And I was like, well, this will be like if I go out, if I start dating, and because I wasn't dating at the time. And then it just built and built and built. And dude, I got like 22 fucking colognes now, dude. I switch them up every day. Now it's so bad. I got body washes because like I had this body wash that smelled good until I wore this one cologne. And it was like, these two things are clashing right now. So the same thing. I started one other body wash. Now I got like fucking 6 body washes.
Yeah.
It's fucking, I got 3 different scents of beard oil for when I grow the beard.
There's a tendency to do that. I mean, you wouldn't, well, you might believe the amount of suits I have. It's fucking wild. I always make the same joke. It's like your suit collection and your gun collection are similar. It's like you get all of these things that sit around. You can only use one at a time, if ever. That's why I started wearing them more.
That's a great line. But they are also like tools, right? So you have different suits for different occasions. You have different guns for different occasions.
That's very, very true. Well, the suit thing for me, I really...
Wedding and a funeral shoot probably shouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah,
but a lot of dudes it is.
Yeah, I don't bring my 9mm to funerals. Suit.
That's your shotgun of suits right there. Is the one suit that does it all. You go hunting, home defense.
Yeah. There's some weird. That'll probably be a bit eventually. But the suit thing. I particularly with comedy.
What's the gun version of suit pants or a pantsuit? I mean,
a pantsuit. Yeah. God, that'd probably be like one of those 22 pistols. It looks like it's an actual like a 9mm, but it's like overbuilt.
Yeah.
But it's still just like pew, pew, pew. Like that almost works, I think. But the suit thing for me is just controlling the narrative and creating ambiance. So the comedy thing, right? Like right now, I'm just dressed like somebody that like I saw something in a magazine, the Spezzato, where you have the different colored pants as the coat. But there's ways to do that and no tie and stuff. But comedy, I like to go a little bit more Don Drapery, like straight-laced, because, okay, I thought about this before I started doing it. I was like, you see all these people wearing, like, ratty hoodies and indie rock t-shirts, and they'll go up there and be like, well, my roommate, caught me jerking off. I'm like, yeah, well, it looks like you have 6 roommates and you jerk off a lot, so I don't know if this story is going to actually be all that funny. Like,
right.
But if you feel like you're at a high school assembly and your principal, hi, everybody, my roommate caught me jerking off, you're like, whoa, like it's a little bit more jarring, and then whatever the punchline is, tomorrow it's my turn to chase him, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But it's a made-up joke. But it's like, I want everyone to feel like they're at something where they're supposed to sit up straight, and then the bullshit that starts coming out of my mouth is just like, what is going on? Because what I said to somebody, a fart can be funny, but a fart in church is just magical. And that's what I want it to be like, are we at a timeshare meeting? Why is that guy talking about his balls so much? Like, I feel like it always works. It always kind of like, oh, well, this is going to be something real. Like, no, it's not. It's going to be so weird and gross.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you're saying, because Joey Diaz is shocking. But if John Mulaney came out and said some shit like Joey Diaz, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Like, ew. What?
It'd be a whole new level. So I agree completely, because we were kind of talking about that before the podcast too.
Yeah.
Like, it works. It works for your style, especially because you got a bunch of tattoos.
Oh, I am. Yeah, I always give a little bit of the peak, but I'm pretty covered now.
But that also works, right? Because like, you used to be a musician, and now you're all grown up doing comedy. Right? Like, you can roll that bit into so many things. Like, oh, I'm so much more serious now. I care about I quit doing. I got this bit that never really worked, but it was something like, basically, the idea was like, I used to be a musician and now I'm trying comedy. Clearly I don't like money. Right? That whole thing, but then you can, like, that same vibe, not necessarily that line or that bit, but you take that same idea and it's like, you can mock that wearing the suit. Because again, you're not taking yourself too seriously.
No, I know. And at
the same time, it's
you touched on something really, really big for me too, which is the tattoos underneath and everything. It's funny. I'm like a criminal that's just kind of like, hi, I'm all straightened out now. It gives a weird impression, but the thing I like to make fun of the most, and I did it in my music and I do it in my comedy in a different way, but it's that all of society is a piece of shit dude in a suit. Like me. Like, it's you're all dressed up, you walk into the bank, people are like, oh, he must be important or whatever. It's like, yeah, this guy picks his ass and sticks his dick in things and will punch people and he's drunk, and you're just a fucked up piece of shit. Like,
but you happen to be wearing a suit.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, hello, sir. Like, what is that? Like, the whole world is just grown-up children pretending they know what they're talking about. There's no such thing as adults. You think there are when you're a kid, and then there's just little kids with gray in their beard being like, I know what's happening here. And like, no, you don't. And so I think all of society is a gross car salesman in too expensive of a suit so you can't tell, but it's like a thin little veneer that kind of throws people. Like, the stock market is just about confidence. It's not about anything real.
Right.
And it's like everything works like that. Everything is just stupid. And I feel like I love making fun of things that are kind of timeless. Like I'm not a big current events guy. I like just being like like one of those videos where I'm talking about like, when people have kids, why do you call it having kids? You're just they're kids for like 5 seconds. You're making more people. You're making traffic.
Right. Yep.
Like, and it's like, hey, that's kind of mean, but I guess that's actually true. Damn it. And you have as many kids as you want, but just know that it's like what stick to your guns. Like, yeah, you show it off when it's 6 months old, but I want to see your greasy turd of a 28-year-old. Like, he's on his 3rd DUI. Look at those cheeks in his mugshot. Like, if you're not going to do that, don't fucking have kids. Like, be like, hey, look, you better be proud of him when he's like divorced and it has like a jail record. And like, you're like, I'm going to have a baby. It's like, you're going to have a baby for a few years, and then you have a person who's horny and dangerous, like, out into the world.
That's like, dude, I was telling my wife, we both kind of hope we have boys.
Yeah.
And mine's for that old adage, because fucking, man, you have a girl, I got to worry about all the dicks if I have a little girl. Yeah. But if I have a little boy, I only got to worry about the one dick. Like, it's just way less stress, man.
Yeah, it's a good goof. Like, he can only... However, that one dick, that girl can only get knocked up, like, occasionally. Like, that one dick can go knock up, like, 10
True. And that one penis is significantly more prone to go burn a lot of shit down in his teenage years.
Yeah.
Like it can get real violent during his rebellious phase.
Oh, yeah. They're little apes.
Like with my daughter, the worst thing I'm going to try to avoid during their teenage years is her getting on heroin, meth, or getting pregnant. With the boy, it can be goddamn just about anything out there where they just fuck, dude. And their
don't
whole
just
lives.
Punch some guy in a bar if he hits his head and dies. That's like a life sentence. Like, don't do shit like that. But everybody's like, I'm just going to go out and fuck everybody up.
Yeah, when you and your buddies take the mushrooms, don't also steal the neighbor's car.
Yeah.
Like
put on some music
like that,
and hang out in the backyard or something. That's the way to do that.
Because they're going to do this shit. Oh, yeah. They're all going to do it. And with girls, there's something about girls, and maybe I'm being ignorant right now, but there's definitely a perception that they're more responsible than boys. So
they're just less violent. That's
I would agree.
Mainly,
they seem less, or they seem more responsible.
Yeah, they don't seem responsible to me, but that's just taking my record into account. I'm just like, I'm sure a lot of you lined up to make a pretty bad decision.
That's true.
Which I witnessed firsthand. I'm like, but I think they're just less destructive. I think, and that's just the chemicals in people's bodies. It's just kind of like, well, they're gonna lie and steal things, but it's like they probably won't burn anything down.
Right.
And guys will lie and steal things and burn things down. Right. So it tips it as seeming that they're much less well, which is true, but it's just the danger of it. Right. That chimpanzee murder impulse is too fucking strong.
And it's so funny now too, because like we were talking about the PC shit earlier, and then we're talking about comedy, obviously, and that has been the basis for a timeless genre of jokes. The differences between men and women. And like, it didn't matter if you're the best comic in the world or a brand new beginner. You're allowed to do that subject, because if you can come up with a new angle, it's still okay and it's funny and everyone can relate to it. Yeah. Now, apparently, there's no biological difference between a man and a woman, and any citing of the differences, even in joke form, is bigotry. So it's like, fuck, man, you got into comedy about 10 years too late too, bud.
Yeah, I know I did. Well,
or 10 years too soon.
Yeah, I think that's okay though, because I don't have a lot to say about that. So I don't worry about it a lot. Like my entire thing is like
until you have a son and a daughter running around and you're comparing the differences between the two.
And then I might, and that would be a long enough time for now where maybe things will change. But also, I'm also a staunch believer, though, that the people that get that upset about that kind of thing are a tiny fringe that's really loud. I don't really think... I think if you're like a dickhead, like, oh, fuck these people, it's like, well, yeah, no one likes that, but not that many people really are like that. I think... Right. I think
I agree with you. I have that exact same theory. Like, it's such a small group that are actually the outrage culture, the cancel culture. It's such a small group of people. If you just ignore them and keep doing your thing, you'll survive.
Yeah, I'm not real worried about that, but I don't have like and probably people would be upset for me saying this, but most people probably wouldn't, because they'd probably just be like, oh yeah, that seems like that's probably what happened. People's awkward phase is now being presented on the largest platform in the world. Like, people who are young and they're like, I wasn't born when or who I thought I should be or whatever, and most people kind of just grow up and they're like, I was kind of wild when I was a teenager, and no one saw it and no one heard about it. But it became where it's like, okay, someone that's like 15 is literally altering the course of like the country's economy through politics, because it's like, oh, we have to like listen to everybody while they do stuff that usually kind of happened in their diary or in private. And then they were like, I went to college and I realized life is more fun than flipping out about all this stuff. And people that feel powerless, because if you grow up on the farm and you feel like you were born in the wrong body, your parents are like, oh, don't let me catch you wearing a dress. Where are you going to go? You're like, well, I'll just go on Twitter and be like, the whole world is unfair. And then you'll find other people like, yeah, the world is unfair. And they band together and like, oh, this is really happening. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's a bunch of drama club kids that are having their meltdowns just for all to see. And it creates the appearance. There's nothing wrong with drama club, but you usually.
There's a lot wrong with drama club. But this isn't a diss on drama club.
No, it's fine. It's lots of fun for people. But that's the thing. It's like that stuff that normally got turned into art maybe, or like kind of just, you're like, yeah, I did all this stuff. I kind of found myself or whatever. You just would do that and you'd meet people. Maybe you'd move to a bigger city and you're like, hey, look, there's a whole club for people like me here. I'll just go to that and feel good about myself. But before you get a chance to like turn 18 and move away, like get off the farm with your angry uncle that doesn't allow you to be who you are, and you move to New York City and you're like, hey, and then suddenly all of that's not so bad. You're like, oh, there's all kinds of like-minded people. I feel good. But when you're trapped, but then you have this thing that lets you broadcast your feelings, and it's a common enough story where it creates this like element. But I think I'm not worried about anybody coming after me or getting canceled or anything.
I think there's some other things that aren't really acknowledged in that whole paradigm as well. Like,
I hope that didn't come off as mean, because it really isn't.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Some people go through some weird. I'm glad I didn't have a fucking Facebook account when I was 14. The stuff that would have gone on there just because I thought it was funny or I was mad would have been insane. Be like, this is who you are.
And that's what I'm getting at.
But I'm not. I grew out of it, and then okay.
Exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. Is like, I don't think people really are acknowledging the fact that like, you're shaped by what is around you, the people, the environment, the culture, the music, the TV, everything, right? All the experiences you have is what shapes you and your personality and your identity and who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not truly done for some people as late as until they're 25 years old.
I've heard that your brain's not completely even all the way set up until you're about 25.
Right. And that tracks. That makes sense, because kids usually getting out of college somewhere between 22 and 24 usually have some sort of fucking almost mental breakdown. They freak out because they're getting ready to start their lives. They're questioning everything like, oh, fuck, man, did I pick the right major? I'm about to graduate. I hope I picked the right major. Oh, they just accepted a position. They got to move out of state.
Yep.
They're
scary out there.
Or maybe they're questioning who they're dating, because they're finally having to like confront reality and start their lives, right? And dude, it's almost like a midlife crisis, but it's like a pre-life crisis is what I'm getting at, right? Happens in your early 20s.
Yeah, everything changes.
Yeah,
like a lot. Like all of a sudden,
Exactly. And what I'm getting at here is like, now, back in the day, like when we grew up, you were only influenced by the shit around you and the shit at most on TV or the radio, right? Now, like you said, you can get on Twitter, right, and start listening to some person, whether sane or crazy, who's from fucking Britain, who has no understanding of what your culture is really like, and you could end up in a group with full of quote-unquote like-minded people, and you could have your complete perception of what the world really is completely distorted, because now you're being influenced by people who don't live your day-to-day life. They don't understand that your dad is, he may be a dick and he's not okay with you being gay, but that doesn't mean the answer is for, which according to these people, I'm not throwing everyone into this bus. I'm completely making
it's a few people that are very loud.
Like you're gay. You're trying to figure this out. You live in small town Oklahoma. Your dad's a super conservative right wing person.
Yeah.
It's against his religion. All the cliches, right?
Yeah.
Well, at 14, you stumble across the wrong internet group, and really is what you are. Period. Is just a fucking gay dude. That's all you are. Okay.
Yeah.
And you should probably grow up in that fucking world, because honestly, where you grew up, even though you're gay, you probably still do love football. You love fucking riding horses and being a cowboy. You love all that shit, right? The answer is not at 14 to fucking become part of a Facebook group from New York City or fucking London who's a bunch of transvestites or transsexuals. I can't even remember the right word anymore. And they're like, no, is what you do is you take these chemicals from your doctor with the privacy, you get a chemical change, you become a woman because that's why all your problems are, and blah, blah, blah. And then by 17, this kid has completely lost their fucking mind because their brain hasn't even done developed. And now, just like they say kids shouldn't smoke weed or drink or do any other crazy drugs because your brain isn't done developing. Like, it's all the same shit. And now reverse everything I said, and it's just simply political beliefs. You're 14, you're a liberal kid stuck in a conservative town, and all of a sudden you get hooked up with these wild-ass fucking crazy left-wingers or right-wingers, whatever, and you go off the fucking rails and you end up in some fucking crazy-ass extremist group because you're too fucking stupid to know any better. Well, it's too easy for all those things to happen while our young minds are still being developed, and then they band together and they clan together like a religion.
Yeah, and I mean, it obviously that happens with more groups than just that, too. There's a big...
I just made up a bunch of random hypothetical shit.
Someday...
I'm not even sure that made any sense.
Well, it did,
in
but
retrospect.
We will look back.
Are you enjoying your syrup, by the way?
I've had a few... I've been rinsing it down with vodka, and that kind of helps. But it really takes the sting out of it. But, so... Oh, I almost lost my train of thought there. But no. So people that... There's no... We're going to look back on giving kids social media like a way that we laugh at like 1800s doctors. Like, this is going to be like our thing when we're old. We're like give it a little kid in the 20s. Like, here's your cigarette. Like, go work at the coal mine. Like, be like, oh God, that was ridiculous. Someone's going to look at us and like social media shit being like, you were just giving this to 12-year-olds? Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, it's so bad for your mental health. And it's all based off, it works like cigarettes and stuff. Like, it's like, oh, you get these little hits of dopamine because social media is like, I quit for like a little while and now I've limited it severely and I felt a lot better. But you get these little hits of dopamine because they're like, they know what you want to see. They're pretty good at that. And they make sure to only give it to you at those slot machine intervals. And they know they're using like a casino algorithm to keep you doing it and just to drive views and getting your data and all this stuff. So it's just, it's like them selling anything that we made illegal later. Like, yo, you can't market cigarettes to like high school kids. Like, you can't do that because it's going to fuck them up and it doesn't do anything good for those kids. And it's just making you money and you don't give a shit. Well, eventually Facebook will be like that too, where they're like, whoa, what were we doing? Like, it was making people fucking crazy. And it's hard because you don't know who you're talking to on there. You know, everything that our parents told us about the internet when it was new is still true. Mm-hmm. It's just that no one's trying to lure us into a van. But it's still like, you don't know who that is. You don't know if they're like a 40. Well, they probably are doing that too.
I was just going to say that's
not
probably
me, but
social media has probably even made that worse.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
It's probably made child sex predators fucking. It's probably a playground for them. I mean, did you hear about that YouTube thing a while back?
There's a lot of YouTube things. Which
about the child sex predator thing, the pedophilia porn on YouTube.
Oh,
where they were putting videos of kids up, and then there was code words in the description,
right?
So other pedos could go, and then like you'd be watching
like buffered by sort of normal stuff. So you just people would leave their kids alone with it, like, and they'd be like, oh, you're fine, just be on this iPad all day, like.
There was that, and then there was the reverse where it'd be like, you knew which code words to search for, and it'd pop up, and then you'd be watching it, and it'd be like normal looking, like innocent shit of like little kids playing. And then all of a sudden there'd be like a screenshot of like a naked kid, and then it'd just go about its business. And then it was like every 30 seconds it would just be a screenshot of a naked child, like I don't remember the exact intervals, but dude, it was fucking wild. So my point is I think you're onto something actually, is that like, But where do we go? What do we do? Are we going to fucking limit? Like, okay, you can't go on social media till you're 16. Well, that's arguably when you're at your most emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah, I don't know. I think 18, it's almost like you just can't. Like, it's almost like I almost wonder if certain versions of, because when everything starts, it's the Wild West, you know, and I think there's probably at some point in the future it'll be like, you can't have a thing that works like this anymore. Like, because there's the technology, as we've been seeing a lot of, moves so much faster than the speed of like politics. There's like these 80-year-old people like trying to make all these decisions about like there's no data for them to look at anyway. There's like, well, what, we don't we're learning now about the psychological damage of the way the old social media slot machine thing works, and the way it hotwires things, and the way it breeds extremism, and the way it does all this stuff. It's like, it's not like we knew that 50 years ago, and they're like, oh, well, fuck it, we're still going to do it. We're learning that right now.
I think the basic internet did all those things, but social media is making it significantly easier to access and connect with, like we said earlier, like-minded individuals. So, like, if you have all the markers to where, like, this person is susceptible to right-wing extremism, you put that person on social media, they're going to end up there faster than if social media didn't exist.
Oh, they might not have ended up there at all. That's why everybody's like, why is there so many like extreme groups under whatever stripe? Like, I mean, we obviously were seeing all like the ISIS beheading and recruiting videos and things, and everyone was like, oh, that's like an extreme example though. That's different. And it's like, yeah, well, now there's people along the fringes of everything, and we've watched everything get more extreme. Like, I was thinking about it earlier. When I think of like a left versus right thing, like just in the classical sense, it'd be like, oh, it's like Teddy Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln are like, well, we can't cut down all the beautiful forests in America, and it's like, but then the loggers will be out of work. Who's going to watch over them? You're right. Well, if industry is important, maybe there'll be some forests that are protected, and then the workers will plant trees in other areas, and then the logging industry will still be able to make money. And they're like, oh, a bully for you to reach across the aisle, because that's how they were like this far apart. Right. Instead of just all these like, oh, we should burn everything down with no plan to rebuild it, or it's like everybody needs to be locked in a cage. Like, it's like that wasn't what things used to be like. And I'm not talking about, I hate good old daysism.
Yeah, we're not going nostalgic on the bit.
No, but it's just more like, I think the differences were like the ones I sort of made up there, where they're kind of subtle, like, well, we can't dump things in the water, but we do need electricity. Like, well, what do we do? Well, we'll have to regulate that. It's like, it goes back and forth a little, and maybe it goes the wrong way sometimes, and we learn that. I mean, that's as wild as it got, basically.
And this isn't just perception, though, John. There's actual data out there to back this up. Like, when they polled people in the early 90s, whether they agreed or disagreed with the left or the right or blue or red or whatever, it didn't matter. Very few people in these polls believed, whether they agreed or not with the other side, that the other side, the other party, was evil.
Yeah.
Now you do these polls now, and people like vehemently believe not only is the other party wrong, they're evil, and they're ruining America. And if they get control, they're going to burn the country to the ground. And you're hearing the same thing about Trump and Biden right now. And it's just, we've been on like a 3-degree since, and basically the data kind of shows this, is like we've been on a 3-degree trajectory since like the early 90s, and here we are 30 years later, and these motherfuckers are ready to go to war with each other. I mean, it's that's both metaphorical and almost literal.
Yeah, there's some literal.
It's fucking intense.
I thought it was really funny though. Is like yes, there's people on both sides, but it has been funny watching some of this stuff happen where it's like if there was ever a straight up fight between all the fatzos with AR-15s and vests and the kids throwing fire bombs, I'm like, I think the kids might win. Because if you watch the behavior of like these kids, they feel like they have nothing left to lose. Like, there's a lot of people that live on a dirt road, but in a big house with a brand new truck, and they're going to work at their dad's thing. They have something to lose. These kids in the city that are just tearing shit apart, it's Braveheart. But yeah, shoot 30 of us until your clip's empty, and the rest of us are going to tear your fucking skin off and eat it. Like, watching that has been really funny. I don't want to see this happen, but it's been wild.
You're definitely true if they can, but
I understand. It's a bit of a joke, but it's. I mean, watching people with nothing to lose versus people that are angry but definitely have a lot to lose.
I'm not busting your balls on this.
Real interesting.
I'm not busting your balls on this. This is like a thought experiment I've been doing for a while. Like, and take Kenosha. Like, Kenosha is a great example. There was a whole group of people, and he didn't need 30 rounds yet, but he had 30 rounds. Yeah. And knowing he had 30 rounds, like, he got out of there with his life. Now, what you're saying is true if it's downtown Minneapolis and it's one dude and he's got two 15-round clips in his pistol, but you add in 2 motherfuckers next to him with the same fucking, now we got 3 people. So you're right, if it's a group versus an individual and they start cornering motherfuckers and mobbing motherfuckers, you're 100% correct. 30 rounds, you're going to kill 30 of us, but we're going to literally tear you limb from limb when you're done. 100% true. However, and that's also true even if you got an AR-15 and a bunch of motherfuckers, if you're all fat fucks, like you just got done saying, like your body armor doesn't even cover your fat fucking fuck you. I could hit you.
I don't mean to body shame any of our machine gun toting patriots or anything.
I'm absolutely body shaming you if you think you're a fucking athlete or a soldier running around and you're going to defend the fucking country from enemies both foreign and domestic when you can't even fucking run down the block without having a goddamn stroke, you fat fuck.
Zombieland. Always do cardio. Right? Like you can have a gun, but you better be able to like book and climb over a fence and stuff. And that's the thing too. Like I hurt myself a while ago because basically I forgot I was 40. Like that whole thing I went through. Right?
You got to stretch, bro.
I got yelled at by my doctor because he was like, "What?" And it wasn't my like regular doctor. I had to go see somebody because I thought it was a hernia. I was putting that all over the internet. Turns out it was like a torn muscle. I still have, but getting a little better. But I was like, "What did you think you did?" And then I watched his eyes glaze over as I was listing off like all of this weird shit that I've just done in my life, and he just finally was like, "Okay, I think I see what you did. You didn't do any one thing. You look in the mirror, you don't see a 40-year-old guy. I get that. You imagine like like Dwight Schrute, like math teacher looking dude, because that's what 40 used to look like, I guess. But like, you can't just run and climb a chain link fence. And it's like, it's good that you work out and stuff, but that you can't do a cartwheel into a mosh pit like anymore. Like you hurt yourself and you're gonna hurt yourself again and whatever. And I just think I'm sort of in shape, but there's a lot of people out there that talk a lot of shit on the internet and they're older than me and they're not in shape and they're like, we're gonna take all these people on. Like, first of all, you're gonna puss out because you're like, I don't know, if I start shooting people I can't go back to my big house and the girl that I'm cheating on my wife with. These other people are like, we don't have anywhere to live. It's like I see it getting ugly in a weird way. Nobody wins in that scenario either. We all lose when there's just violence in the streets. That's terrible, but it's just a fun thing while locked in my house to watch the internet and be like, hey, guys, like, I don't know. I don't remember what we were talking about before that, but
we've been talking about a bunch of random shit.
I do think though that extremism is kind of like being bred on all fronts by social media. Like I think it is 100% to blame for all this stuff we're seeing. It's like, oh, weird, this got really bad in the past like 6 years. What else? Everyone's grandma's on Facebook, like everybody, and no one's reasonable, and it's the people that you would see once every 3 years at a family reunion, and then it's like now you have to fight with them every day.
You know what it did is it's the social media equivalent of giving the voice to the voiceless like a vote did, but the difference is with a vote you only get one of them.
Yep, you got to go and pick and then go home.
Yep.
And
it doesn't matter how many people you tell. I voted for President fucking Uvula.
I would also like to vote for President Uvula.
But it doesn't matter. That's it.
Yeah.
You're done. But with the internet, it made everyone's voice equal. Mm-hmm. And so if you just figure out how to say the right thing the right way, put the right hashtags in there, post it in the right group or on the right website, your shit can go viral and you can ruin someone's fucking life.
Oh, yeah.
And it may not even be because you think that person is bad. You're doing it as a revenge game because of extremism, right? Like, so you're going, oh, well, they took down my favorite comedian, those fucking libs. I'm going to take down their fucking favorite guy. And so you figure out a way to go after somebody and you ruin their fucking life because it's a game to you now.
It is a game. That is not looking at it like a game made things a lot better at one point. And when it's a game, that's always been when people would talk about some political thing being broken, they'd be like, hey, let's not just
for you a little bit.
Sorry.
You're good.
Let's not just treat this like a football game where we're cheering on things that we don't even maybe necessarily agree with just because our guys are doing it. It's like, don't start doing that because that's how bad things happen. And that's how whatever coat of paint you're under when people are like pushing people around even if I agree with you, if your methods get kind of fascistic, I'm not going to change what I think, but I'll realize that you and I aren't actually on the same team anymore. I thought we were the people that would talk about things and be like, I think, we should do things that make the world a better place to live in. I think even if you're totally selfish and you're smart, you clean up your neighborhood a little so you can live in a nicer neighborhood. Like it makes, even if you're completely self-motivated, if you're not a dum-dum, you'll be like, oh, I want things to be good. And when it stopped being about that and started just being about like winning, that is where it really went wrong.
Here's a great example of that. Back a while back when the $15 minimum wage was the hot debate. If you just randomly ask somebody, are you for a $15 minimum wage, you would either get a vehement yes or a no, and it's because you either think it's going to make somebody better or worse off, by doing so. Now, I seen I don't remember what it's called. It's this formal debate. They do them like once a month or once every few months. It's a really legit debate. I forget what it's called. I think it's based out of Ohio. But regardless, they did one, and they said, before we get started in this debate, we have to agree on one thing. We all want to make more money, correct? And everyone, regardless of what side of the debate they were on, said, yup. Now, here's an interesting thing about that one, right? Because if you started off going, we all agree everyone deserves to make more money. Yeah, okay. How do we do that? Should we raise the minimum wage? You're going to go into that with a lot more open ears and an ability to have a discussion versus, hey, you're not paying people fairly. You're ripping people off.
Yeah.
You're fucking greedy and you're evil because you don't pay your people. Like,
now
that person's on the defensive.
They're defensive now. They're like, oh, well, fuck you, buddy. Like, yeah.
Right,
well, that's
like
why civility is more important than people give it credit for. Civility is how things actually get done.
An honest discourse, face to face, with a preemptive qualifier like that.
Yeah,
like let's first agree, everybody deserves to make more money.
Yeah,
everyone. Like we're not even gonna. We're not even gonna kick.
Like,
we're not even gonna kick billionaires out of that group.
Yeah,
right. Because if we include everyone in on this idea, now everyone can benefit, like the rising tide raises all ships theory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of mindset. But we don't do that.
No.
And especially on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, people also answer real differently when you're like, hey, so what do you think there, buddy? Like, well, I mean,
fuck you. That's what that's what the response is.
It would be on the internet, but in person, like I bumped into people that were like I'd run into some guy out in the boonies and be like, was all happy that Trump won or whatever, and he's like, oh, do you want Hillary to win? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think that might have been better, but I really wanted Bernie to win. I feel like his heart was in the right place. He's trying to help people, and this guy almost started lighting him up, and when I said that, he's like, well, yeah, it does seem like that would not have gone that way on Facebook.
Right.
He'd have been like, well, his heart's in his fucking ass with his brain's where it's at.
Right.
But as soon as that dude was just talking to me and I was like, yeah, I think like he had people's best interests in mind, whether or not he was able to do it. I don't know. But I mean, I was willing to give him a chance. And he's like, oh yeah, that actually sounds kind of reasonable. Wouldn't have worked on Twitter. Would not have worked on Facebook. That would have just been a fight where I just deleted that guy.
Here's another great example. So I'm online and people are fucking blaming me because I voted for Gary Johnson and that's why Trump won. And I'm trying to explain to these guys,
because nobody voted.
I'm trying to explain to these guys. I'm like, here's the thing. I'm like, I could not. And I've tried to do this online and face to face. In face to face, it works every time. And people go, "No, that I get that, dude. That's okay. Like, if that's what you're thinking, like, I can stomach that.
Yeah.
Here's what it is. I go, listen. In my lifetime, we've had two families running this country in one way, shape, or form. 1980, Ronald Reagan becomes president. His vice president is George H.W. Bush. Yeah. In 1988, H.W. Bush becomes president. Till 1992. That's 12 years of this guy being in the Oval Office, okay?
Yeah.
Well, not the Oval, but you know what I mean, in the White House. Then we get Clinton for 8 years. Then we go right back to another Bush, the first guy's son, for another 8 years. Then we go to Obama. Now, in Obama, you think, well, that's not no. Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. in the White House. Okay. So now we've got Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama / Clinton. And then the next option was to go right back into a full-fledged 8 years of Hillary Clinton. That means by my math, I would have had either a Bush or a Clinton in the White House for over 30 consecutive years.
Yeah.
That to me is disturbing because that is an oligarchy. Now we have rich, elite, powerful families running our country over and over again.
We do anyway.
But here's my point. They go, well, that's why I voted for Trump. And I go, he's also a rich, elite billionaire.
Well, he's
and now,
not, but
now is what
we
I'm.
found that out.
Well, but he was part of the elites.
Everybody, people that like wrestling, thought he was rich.
But he's part of the elites.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? He ain't
right.
no blue collar fucking dude.
Right, he didn't come out of
He ain't one
nowhere
of
from
us.
a factory town
Yeah,
and be like,
he ain't one of us.
dude, I love
He
how
borrowed $1 million from his dad.
way more than that.
Like, he's not one of us, you guys. He's not a New Yorker. He's not a blue-collar Yankee fan who fucking struggles and worries
Yeah.
about Derek Jeter ending too soon. No, it's not that.
I loved everyone. I saw a guy had a T-shirt that had a picture of Trump wearing a motorcycle jacket, like walking into the White House. I'm like, how do you think that guy is like one of these guys like that? Like, he's been on TV since I was a little kid, and everyone's
Right.
always hated him. And he was like in the WWF. Like, he like hit someone with a chair,
Exactly.
or something. It's like, this is wrestling, guys. This is just wrestling. This is.
And here's my biggest fear now. Is people still to this day cling to this man and act like he's a fucking savior. And all I'm thinking about is there's a kid named Barron Trump that's probably going to end up being president one day.
Probably.
So instead of us getting
Because
out
he'll be
of
the
this,
only one that doesn't go to jail because he's only 14.
well, and instead of getting out of this fucking grind of having two families basically running our country since 1980,
Yeah.
because even before Bush was president or vice president in 80, he was the
Well,
head
he's
of
a
the
CIA guy.
CIA. So
And
he
that's
was,
who the people you don't vote for with either your dollars or your votes
right.
have been. That's been the same people for
Thank you.
fucking long, and it's not like a weird conspiracy. They just are. They're just. I'm not a big like you see the lizard people, but it's like, would you vote for the head of CIA? Like, did you vote for any of these people who decide
Right.
really whether or not
Thank
we
you.
go to war, really
you.
whether or not we send drones out? They're just there. They just like
Thank
got the job, like they
Yeah.
filled out an application and didn't smoke weed for 3 months before they had to
Right.
piss test, and that's it. And they're in there. And they're
Now,
in
when
there
I
for
ex-
fucking decades.
Now, when I explain this in person and I go, and that's why I voted for Gary Johnson, because the Aleppo thing, I get it. Him holding his tongue thing, I get it. But at the end of the day, he was a governor. And if you look at what he did, like how we measure successful governors, that is the closest job description to the president,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And if you take that resume, he was literally the most qualified person for the job by pure experience.
A lot of people
So-
have said that. And well, my thing is like
but I'm not
everybody.
making a case for Trump or Clinton. I'm saying
No.
I can have a rational conversation about this face to
Yeah.
face. When I make this argument about why I voted for Gary Johnson, when it happens online, I'm called a fucking idiot. I'm told I wasted my vote.
Well, 'cause
I'm
you can't
told
jack him in the face. over
I'm
the
told
internet.
I'm told because of me Trump won, even though we live in a blue state and our state
Yeah,
still went to Clinton.
it's hilarious that it actually, if you live in Minnesota, you did what you could no matter what.
we voted for Clinton.
My whole thing.
We all voted for Clinton,
Yeah,
whether
yeah,
you
well,
voted for Trump or not.
The
You
electoral
voted for
college
Clinton.
is a whole other problem. But I think that like my thing now is like, yeah, I'm gonna go vote for Biden. But I think that people just need to vote. The worst things happen when like hardly anybody votes. Like
Well,
vote
about
for,
a third
vote
of the
for your
country
local. Yeah, but it should be like
About.
you have to. They
About
should
a
make it so
third
that
vote.
like you go to jail for a year if you don't vote. Like you have to.
I don't know, man. That's dangerous, dude.
I know. I
can't
shouldn't
start doing that
Yeah,
shit.
see, when I start saying these things, I want what's good for everyone. I'm going to make this place better. So what if some blood gets shed? Some people will go to jail, but eventually it will be beautiful. Yeah, see, that's where it all goes wrong. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. But what I'm just saying is it's really voter apathy is responsible for like, even in small, like your local elections, no one votes in those. You really should.
That's the most important.
Those people
vote.
actually control things that happen to you, especially if you're homeowners like we are.
And
like,
those are the ones that put pressure on the president. So like
yeah, eventually
like,
they have to
so-
bend and listen to these people.
And I'm not defending Trump, but I will like not hold him responsible for things that aren't originally his ideas, and I'll hold the party responsible for things that are really them. So for example,
Yeah.
the whole drain the swamp thing, okay?
Yeah.
That was something pushed by his campaign team. And when he said it out loud, he didn't even want to say it. He thought it was a stupid idea. But when he said it, people cheered. So he kept saying
And
it.
there you go.
And the same thing with the build the wall thing. That was just something that his campaign convinced him to push harder than most presidential, because that's what people were cheering for.
Got them all riled up.
Now, here's my point. The senators the congressmen and women, they are the ones that really put pressure on Trump to actually take certain stances on certain policies, because without them, he doesn't have the fucking power to do anything. So he needs, it's almost like trickle down economics, but in reverse, right? So like the power is at the top with the president, and then it's not supposed to be this way. But then who really controls that is this middle group, which are your senators and congressmen. And who controls them are the people that actually vote them in. So meaning what the president is doing is reflective of what the people have voted from the ground up. Yes. So what you said is more important than ever. If you want to actually save America,
gotta go vote in all of these boring elections no one cares about. You
exactly.
I do.
Exactly.
Dude, I live across the street from a school, and I guess that's like, sorry, it's down a little ways, but
you can pull it back to you.
That's where I gotta piss like a racehorse.
Okay, go ahead. Just go upstairs and then just go through the kitchen, and it's like right there. Like you're gonna do like a
horseshoe run.
Like yeah. You can't miss it. No, you're good, dude. You're good, man. Let's see. The real question is how I'm gonna kill time while he goes in peace. I'm not sure how I'm gonna kill time. What the fuck were we even just talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about that stupid election shit. He's right though. You gotta do the local elections, because those are the people that have actual legislative power. Those are the people that have immediate power in your area to get shit done. Those are the people that are going to either get shit passed that the president is in favor for, or prevent it from being passed. If you're again, I mean that's how it works. And when we don't have whatever party you're in, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Tea Party, whatever, when we don't have any voice in the Senate or Congress, we don't have a voice with the president. I know that sounds extreme, but that's 100% what's going on here. So only the voices of the supported are heard. So right now, the president is only listening to the senators and congressmen that are there, the majority of which right now are Republican, which is why they're passing laws that you don't agree with, because you don't have enough senators to knock that vote down. And I know this sounds like I'm oversimplifying it almost, but the reason I'm nailing this down so much isn't just to kill time, actually. It's because when you don't vote for these local people, you don't get that voice at all, and you don't exist. Because they don't have to listen to you. You didn't vote them in. The other people voted them in. So those are the people they're going to listen to.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, basically just I was kind of trying to figure this out. Will you pull that?
Oh, shit, sorry.
You're good. It's right there. That one. There you go. Perfect. So basically is what I'm just kind of recapping. It gave me a minute to think this through. So basically, like, when the people don't vote in their local elections, you have no senators, you have no congressmen, no representatives for you and your voice to be heard in Congress.
Yeah.
So not just to knock shit down, like prevent a bad bill from going through, but also just to, like, when you're like, I can't believe fucking the world is going this way. And how come I can't call anybody and do anything? Well, because your guy didn't win. Because you didn't turn out and vote. Because you only voted for the president. But all these other people, it basically looks like, you know, there's only conservatives in this state when you have a conservative. And I know this isn't true. This is a broad statement. But when you're looking at it from the president's lens, and he looks at the congressman and the senator from Kentucky, and they're both Republican.
Yeah.
That's a Republican state now. So only the Republican voters are the ones that are going to be heard, because they're the only ones with anybody to call.
Right.
So you got to get out there and win those local elections, those smaller elections.
And people, they're just, They're not sexy. You know, people are just like, well, I don't even know who this is. I'm like, do we have the internet? Why don't you look? And why don't you go vote for them? And why don't you? And I understand it's like they make it kind of hard to vote sometimes if you work or whatever. And it's like, but you know, the mail-in thing is a thing. And it always we're yelling about it a lot now, but it always has been a thing. Yep. You've never actually had to take the day off to go vote if you didn't want to. You got to fill out some paperwork and all that stuff. But I think that's part of me thinks that it's a lot of these things are so archaic still.
Are you going to mail in vote?
Oh, no, I'm going to walk across. Again, my voting place is across the street, basically. I live across the street from a park,
the road.
And there's a school over there, and that's my polling place. So I don't need to get in my car. I just put on a sport coat and stroll on over there, and
because everyone's
vote all day.
Everyone's saying we should do mail-in voting, and here's the thing: is like if you want to mail-in vote, go for it. But I'm not down. I'm not even okay with making it mandatory. I'm not even okay with considering making it mandatory, and here's why. Will you send $500 cash through the mail?
Oh yeah, right.
Because I won't.
It's a little dangerous, and yeah, that I think what they're trying to do is make it so people aren't scared away from doing it at all.
I agree, and that I'm okay with.
But I go to the grocery store with my fucking mask on, like, and I'll wear my mask at the school and go and vote. And by the way, like, I've never. This is probably different all over the country. I've never gone to vote where there's been. It looks like after a Cub Scout meeting gets out or something. Like there's just like 3 old people wandering around. It's never crowded. Like it's never like, oh God, I'm in this line for hours and there's people sneezing all over me. It's like, dude, the polling places are just. It's like you hear your footsteps.
Have you always voted in Minneapolis?
Pretty much. I mean, I've lived within the borders of Maine. Well, I lived in Bloomington before I bought my house.
I'm just curious because everywhere I've ever voted, there's a fucking line out the door.
Really?
A long line.
It's got to be just district by district, like, or maybe I go at weird times. I mean, I haven't had.
That's what I'm
real
imagining.
Job. So many. I mean, I work a lot, but you know, I run my things.
I went right in the heart of rush hour. I'd get off from work, I'd stop, and I'd vote. So it didn't matter where I lived.
I go during senior lunch at like 1:30 in the afternoon. And he's like, "Hey." Like,
I bet you that's
got to be it. And I know that I'm circling back to, like, you know, how lucky we've been to be able to like go play rock and roll music, and probably the actual reason people tuned into this. What do these two guys that sort of agree really think about politics? Like, but
it's all good, man.
No, I know it's fun. They don't get to go out to bars and scream so much anymore. So, but yeah, like, I'm also lucky that I've always been able to vote really easily because I've been making my own fucking schedule for I don't know how many years now. Like I survive and somewhat handily off of just a collection of cobbled together freelancey things. And I like own a stake in a thing, and it just like it makes it so I can vote. And I do understand that if you're just like, fuck, I gotta go when everyone else is going at like 6:01, and it's like I will concede that I forget about that sometimes, or I can get away with. I mean,
I think that's
I was like, hey man, you want to do this at 2 p.m. on a Friday? Like,
well, and a lot of people don't know. A lot of people still don't know. You can vote super early. Like I think you can vote now.
Yeah, I know.
I think you can vote
so
right
wild
now.
That nobody ever seemed to. I didn't know that for a long time. And the first person I ever voted for was Jesse Ventura. I turned 18 right around when
he was actually a great governor.
I thought so too. I also the first time I voted was this long shot, and that guy won. So I think that's why I'm such a big votey pants.
Sure.
Is I'm like, dude, the first time I voted, it was for someone who they didn't think was going to win, who I thought was good, and even retroactively, I still think it was a good choice.
A great governor.
I voted, my guy won, and I felt good about it. So I'm like, even though in years after that, I've voted for plenty of people who've lost, but it got me all fired up about my local politics.
Dude, it's huge because go back and look at anybody who doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about right now. Go back and look at the policies he passed. There's a website you can go to. I forget what it's called, but you can literally type in any issue and find an index of where every single politician has, what statements they have regarding that issue, or you can cross-reference just one politician and find every statement, every stance they had on any issue. And so one day I went and I found Jesse Ventura, and the shit he literally was the best of every party. So he was extremely liberal on like discrimination, LGBTQ rights.
He legalized fireworks here.
He was extremely conservative when it came to government fines.
Yeah, fiscal shit.
So like he dropped your tabs, which now they are again. Your tabs are based on the value of your car.
Yeah.
So you finally save up. You go buy a brand new fucking car, and suddenly your fucking tabs are $350 a year, and it's like, fuck.
It's the
he
one
brought that down and said, nope, tabs are tabs. They're the same for everybody. It's $52 or whatever it was. $32 back then, I think it was.
Yeah. I was, by the way, that reminds me of that was as an adult, you know, we think about these things that are so unexciting, but I've been part of the reason, well, there's a lot of reasons, but I've been driving the same car into the ground. That car I pulled up in has 271,000 miles on it, and like, I'm just gonna drive it till it stops because I've had it for so long and it's always been really great. And I've had this like, all right, when that goes, all the money I haven't spent on car payments in years and years and years and years, you know, I'll get myself a treat. Like maybe I'll get a Cybertruck when it comes out, or maybe I'll get a fucking like a late '60s Cadillac. Like
please don't buy a Cybertruck.
Oh, I might, but a resto modded or something where it's like. You buy a broken old classic car and just have modern suspension and tires, and there's like a phone jack in there and all that. And maybe I'll go drop 30, 50 grand or whatever. But
if you buy a Cybertruck,
then my tabs will be expensive.
If you buy a fucking Cybertruck, I will openly rip you on this podcast.
Go ahead. What? Well, if we not spend the first 4 years learning that there's no such thing as bad press, Jesus Christ, knock yourself out. I'm going to buy it just for that reason now. It looks like a polygon from Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. And it's just such a big asshole mobile. Like it's so it looks like an Ed209. I would get it murdered. I'd have Vince call up Vince from Nuisance and have him murder it out black.
That thing would be cool.
Ground effects, matte black,
that
like a Batmobile.
Cool. Now it would be cool because like, now it looks like the Crawler. Almost.
Glowing purple, running illegal running lights under it or whatever, and just be a dingus with it. But I don't know. I mean, I would be doing it to be a little bit contentious. But here's the thing. Great. It's probably not going to look like that when it comes out, though, because I learned a little while ago that cars look the way they do. They all kind of look a little bit the same nowadays, if people point out, is because the limits of what you can do and still have it be safe enough to pass muster is like super narrow. Like you can't make a crazy looking Elvis Cadillac thing.
That makes sense.
You can't drive because it'd be like, yeah, well, that's great, but if you turn at this speed, the fucking wheels will fall off of it or whatever.
Right, or it's really bad on gas because it's not aerodynamic.
Yeah, it's horrible for the environment, or the crash will be like a 50s car where you'll just immediately die even if you're going 21 miles an hour. Like, all of that stuff that they kind of bred out of cars. Like, that's the thing. If you drive, I know some car people, especially from hanging around with Jake from Blue Felix. I've met, like rat rod dudes and guys, and I'm friends with the guy that runs Prior Lake Transmission, and they do a lot of race car stuff there. And Harm, shouts out to Harm. Harm's not gonna watch this. He's an older dude. He's an awesome dude, but he took me for a ride. He has a 55 Chevy that he rebuilt, and like it's fully terrifying. Like really? It's fast, it's wild. Like we were on like a dirt road, and he's like, and just steps on it, and you just like testing to be an astronaut, just sucked into the seat, like, but it was like a little like. It just had that feel of it's about to fly off the rails, because modern cars, you can just pick any new 4-door sedan. You could probably outmaneuver like a Mustang from the 70s, as cool as it is. Right. But the tires were all weird and everything was all fucked up. And it's like, whenever I've driven an old car, you feel like you're at a Valley Fair bumper car. You're like, what in the fuck? And something new. Like I'm driving a 2004 Prius, and I can drive that thing like an animal. Like it was like swerving through traffic over here just for fun. Just like, this thing, I have new tires on it and all that. It's like I have money because I don't spend it. So I'm driving the same car, but I keep it running and everything. And but that's like the famous for not being that cool, and you can drive it like a maniac.
Yeah.
And it's like all cars like that. They're all just built the same way. And I love old cool cars, but if I would just take the body and just put new car shit in it, because like actually like driving a thing from the 50s, like we're gonna die.
Right. Like, no, I know exactly what you're talking about too. Honestly, man, the next time I buy a new car, it's gonna be after Tesla gets the rest of the infrastructure in place. So like more charging stations, it's more affordable to get a charging station at home, shit like that. But then also once they get the battery to be able to better handle cold weather.
Yes.
I'm gonna buy one of them lower end Teslas, dude. Because here's the thing: is like I'm not super fucking gung ho about that company or. I mean, I own stock in Tesla. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I made fun of that last video I put out. I was making fun of Elon Musk. Like he's smoking weed on the Rogan show, but then he's like, "Oh, your company has very strict drug policies for its employees." Like, oh, well, fuck you then. Like, come on, man.
I mean, maybe he eased up on the weed.
My
Probably
thing with
not.
drug testing is it's just stupid. No, I really.
Well, it's a waste of money because if people want to do drugs, they're going to do drugs, and then if you drug test and they want to do drugs, they're just going to get around your drug test.
Yeah, either
they're easily
you're
beatable.
starting this relationship off on like I fucking cheated on a test and lied to your face and got away with it. And the last few real jobs I've had, I definitely fucking. Well, I scammed a lot of things, but I definitely scammed my way in too, especially with that.
And
part
not
of
only
it.
that, but then there's just the ethical side of things. Like you kind of said, we're starting the relationship off on a lie, but more importantly, you're also dictating what I can and cannot do when you're not paying
and
me.
mistrust.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to hate you immediately now.
Am I on call? Because
Yeah.
those make sense. Where it's like, no, you got to be able to fucking be sober 24/7 in case we got to call you last.
Yeah, and
minute.
you don't want anyone working for you that's sober 24/7. You have to be out of your fucking mind.
I've always said I don't trust people that are 100% sober all the time.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's like, well, if you don't, some people don't drink, but it's like, if you're gonna, at least hit a 1-y every once in a while, so I know
Something,
you're a human being. You can't just raw dog this bullshit.
And I'm not saying you
have
got
to
to
be
even
crazy.
get drunk. I'm not even saying you got to get drunk, but like if you're at dinner, have a fucking glass of wine.
Yeah, have a beer and let's talk about it.
Chill the fuck out.
You know, things were better when everybody was drunk, by the way. Going back to the politics thing, that Mad Men era of drinking at work, I think, helped people come to more sane and rational. It's like, all right, man, just look, here's what we're going to do. I think it helps. I think if you're just sitting there, just dead sober, being like, I'm going to get that moment, you never loosen up.
Right.
You got to drink at work.
Yeah.
It's important.
Dude, that's the best part about doing the podcast.
Drink it right now.
That's the best part about this, dude. No more boss. Nobody can fire me.
Yeah.
Nobody can fucking tell me. And again, it's like being a comedian. This is the one thing that's got to be better. Because I've been flirting with the same thing you've been doing. Like I think you said you got up a little bit before COVID. We don't have to go into too many details about our fucking fledgling pre-COVID comedy careers.
Yeah.
But
I got 1 year and it was March of the year before.
Yeah. And then it's like, going back to what you said earlier, like, dude, I went to those open mics because I'd been thinking about getting into quick background, quick thing. No one in my entire life has ever told me you should be a musician before.
But they all tell you should be a comedian?
My entire life.
Yep,
they're like,
same
dude,
here.
you should be doing stand-up comedy. So finally, when I was in between bands, I was like, maybe I'll consider this. Maybe I'll do it. And is where the seed got planted is I was performing, and it started with the drummer's kick. I remember the first time it happened. The drummer's kick pedal like fell apart in the middle of a show, and he's like, "Dude, I need you to like buy me 3 minutes."
Yeah, go be funny
and,
for a little bit.
And so my natural instinct, because I turn around, you're holding the mic down. This is all happening in a split second because we're tight band, we're a pro band. Like we go from song to song to song to song. So we go to fucking start this next song. All right, everybody, blah, 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 blah. This next song's called, and all of a sudden I hear Pat go, wait. I turn around, and Pat's like, dude, I need 3 minutes. My kick pedal fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is it broken? No, it's not broken. I just got to put it back together. Something went wrong. 3 minutes. I turn around. That conversation was that long off mic. I turn around, and I go, all right, guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm going to sit here and entertain you for a minute. And I don't remember what I said, but I remember getting the room to laugh, the whole room, a couple times.
Yeah. And
so then, as I start, because this was towards the beginning of our career when I was still kind of a nervous performer. Not nervous, but like you're very conscious about everything.
You're between your ears about it.
Yeah. Like everything's thought out and planned. Like, but then we did more and more and more shows. Eventually, you get loose, you get bored, you start fucking around because you don't want to do the same thing every night. Yeah, so I started
autopilot.
So one time it started once, and then I just kept doing it. Every show, I would introduce our songs as a different made-up name.
I love that.
And I had this long list of long names, like ridiculous names, like an entire sentence.
By the way, did you ever notice while doing this, because I think we could commiserate on this, that people, for some reason, and it's like the last thing you should ever believe, will believe anything you say on stage when you're in a band. I would sit there and be like, because you mentioned that game, and I'm like, I would do that, except for you've probably heard me yell between songs. I think some people showed up just for that sometimes. I'm waiting for the song to get over, some dumbass will say some more things. But I would like lie about where we were from, but I in the same set, be like, "Where some beer from Oklahoma City?" Like, and people would be like, "You said you're from Oklahoma, but I thought you're from here. But you also said you're from Madison." I'm like, "I'm just making shit up. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know we're from here. Like, we've been here this whole time." And they're like, "Oh, weird." I'm like, that actually, looking back on that now, isn't it scary? You're like, that's how easy this is. Uh-oh.
I'm lucky. I
look at what's going on.
I'm just lucky I didn't say more stupid shit more often. That's the lucky part for me, is like, I said a lot of dumb shit, and I made an ass out of myself quite a few times, but it could have been so much worse. Like, I got real lucky, because I am that type of guy who will fucking get high on adrenaline, fucking, your ego's flying high, sold out crowd, and you just fucking go out and say something dumb.
Dude, I did that every day. I said the worst. That became my thing to try to beat myself. Was I would go like, I would say a bunch of shit and like, oh my god, and then like, we'd be playing some big show at the Rock, like a band battle where there's people there that aren't super used to all that, and be like, oh, if you think that's bad, one time I said something on stage that was so offensive that diarrhea shot out of the speakers and gave everybody AIDS. Or I would just yell shit like that. That's just one I could remember. Be like, oh my god, that's not even funny. That's just weird and gross, and like, I don't know. I mean, but that, I guess, our journey to comedy, it was similar then, because it's like, oh, well, I was just, that was really fun. Like, I would love just going up there and talking shit, and then doing comedy for real, though, is funny because you actually, now you're all alone, and you're not just like, oh, in 2 minutes the kick drum will be working, we'll be back to business. You're like, okay, hi, now no one's allowed to talk. Like, it's just you up there by yourself.
The only reason I was even considering it and comfortable with the idea is because it started with what I said about, that 1, 2, 3 minute thing, and it was in between songs, and then I started emceeing shows. So I started my own booking company. I started booking my own shows. But then on nights where I wasn't performing in one of the bands, I would MC the show and just keep people entertained in between bands. And like, I had all these reasons for it, but it started because I would do these raffles or gift bags, right? So you came through, you paid, you got a fucking ticket, and then we would do door prizes. And usually the bags were filled with band merch from all the bands that performed that night. And we gave like 2 or 3 away out in between each set.
Yeah.
And I had other people doing it, and it was just terrible. It was so fucking awkward, right? And so finally one night I was drunk, and I think it was either right before the show or during one of their fucking sets that they were doing the raffle. So it was either before the show started, I was like, you know what, don't worry about it, you guys, tonight I got it. Or they were up there doing it, and I walked up and just grabbed the mic, and I was like, you guys are fucking this up, and just took over and ran with it. And then I did a lot of that. So I'm doing 15, 20 minutes all improv, basically the equivalent of crowd work. I'd start fucking with people in the audience, but I'd fuck with them and start making fun of them, and then I would turn the joke and make fun of myself. And that self-deprecating thing made it really easy for me to figure out how to get people to laugh, and it gave me the confidence of that idea. But dude, the open mic scene here, like, let's talk about that for a minute, dude, because it's a fucking, you want to talk about people from the industry here, music side, like, it's hard to get shows, right? People are, kind of stab you in the backy here in the music scene, man. Fucking comedy scene is weird, because some of these motherfuckers act like their show is the Comedy Store in LA, and it's like, bro, your shit, this show ain't shit. Like, none of you motherfuckers are funny. Like, nobody in this room was funny tonight. You are all horrendous amateurs, and you're making it impossible for this entire crew back here. There's an entire group of guys that you won't even let get up on stage. They're sitting back there hoping that their fucking name gets called and they can get up on stage. And the people you are calling are horrible. I call in, I talk to a few people. I'm like, yeah, I want to get up and do that. One dude, I'm not going to put his name out on the podcast. I'm not even going to name his comedy show. But he goes, this is more of a showcase for experience comedy. And I wanted to fucking grab him by the neck and strangling because I'm like, here's the thing, dude, is like even the Comedy Store has open mics, and like it doesn't matter if fucking Joe Rogan or Bill Burr's going on at 10:15 at 8:00, a brand new open micer still might be going up that night for his first time. Like,
yeah,
it's just ridiculous. Like some of the pretentiousness in this scene.
It's why,
and then the lack of quality and equity to back it up. That's what I'm getting at.
Well,
like,
yeah. Well, I mean, and I approached it as methodically as I could for not knowing anything about it, but I try to do everything kind of the same way. But I started going to it was the Monday night comedy show. I started just only doing that because I knew that if you show up and you make nice with Andy, he'll eventually he'll give you a shot. He's like, oh, you've been coming here and da. He's always, a friend of mine was like, yeah, he's good like that. He'll let you do that. And that's when, like, I didn't really do very many open mics. I would do that show, and then I would just meet other comics that might have a show on another night that kind of pre-book it. And I would just, I hated being like, oh, I hope I go up tonight or whatever. It's like, instead I'd be like, I met a guy named Sydney who had the thing at Mortimer's that I would always like to do also. And one of them was like a kind of almost like the improv thing where it's just the other comics pick topics for you. By the way, that was my favorite.
Really?
The Monday was kind of my favorite because it was so good to me and so dependable, and like I would go even if I wasn't always like, oh, Monday. I mean, yeah, I go have a beer, and people I knew from the music scene, like Josh Cavanis from Club Underground, like I knew him before.
I went and hung out at the Monday night one a lot. I never went up.
That's a fun one, and it's always all going to be hit or miss. But the thing was, I met people through that and branched out from there, rather than just like, well, I guess I'll go to Acme and throw my name in the hat. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe I'll do that when things open up, just for say I did it, and maybe it'll be fun. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. But yeah, I would meet other people that did other shows, and Sydney's thing. Yeah, the Think Fast was great. Because my favorite part wasn't even going up there. My favorite part was writing the topics that the other people had to do. I mean, going up there was funny because you're just bullshit and it comes up on a screen. You're like, make fun of this. I'll be like, that's where I came up with the turkeys. Why don't we have turkey eggs for Thanksgiving breakfast? Is it because they're gross like turkey is, or because they give live birth because they're monsters or something? I was just saying, and I remember that from like a year ago or whatever now. And it was just silliness. You know, I just bring a camera and like, yeah, and just do stupid shit. But I'd love, and this is how I made friends with other comics too, because they'd start to, Philip Colas, I remember I gave him like literally the worst list of things to make fun of, that he just kept doing things like, all right, what do we got? Jesus, John. Like, I'd be like watching porn on your smart fridge. You'd be like, what? I guess you can. Like, that's already the joke. Like, that's weird. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, and then it was just him yelling at me and me yelling at him in front of the crowd off stage and stuff. And I always like that too, where most comedy, if you have like bits you have prepared, everyone's supposed to be quiet unless you're doing some crowd work with them or whatever. But at the thing where you're just making shit up, you were just holler and scream at the person that came up with it for you across the room while they're getting a beer, and everybody was just laughing at the interaction, and it got really fun. And then I met people at that, being like, oh, you know, I run a show. I'm like, oh, hey, like, and that worked really, really well. And I also might again be spoiled rotten because there's this other thing that's been happening since when I was doing comedy, where it was like being in fucking Fight Club. I'd be like talking to somebody, be like, yeah, man, yeah, it's cool you're doing comedy. By the way, yeah, I kind of heard you got into that. And you're not. I've always liked Screaming Monkey Boner. I'm like, fuck, can I meet anyone new in this town? Like someone who had been like on the same nights with me for like months would finally kind of be like, by the way, good set tonight, sir. Like, damn it.
That's it was fucking hilarious.
Like,
dude.
Fuck though. Are people inviting me to things because they think I'm funny? Or it's like so many of them will be like, oh, I remember when you guys played with Head Charge. Like, what? And it's guys that don't look metal or anything at all. They probably had their day with it and stopped when they were like 25, and now they're like my age or whatever, instead of me who went all the way up to 40 being in bands and was finally like, my back hurts, I'm done. But like, it's so I mean, I guess what I'm saying is my impression of it might be a little unfair because I may have gotten a little leeway because no one goes, oh, hi, you're John Wheeler. Like, oh, he's trying this. Oh, play it cool. Let's not act like he's important, and please don't, Jesus. But it was like, oh yeah, you want to, come right on in. I'm like, oh fuck. I was hoping I went into something completely like, you know, cold and dry and like, yeah, whatever. I hope you just think my jokes are funny and
Right.
whatever. And I'm sure that whatever. Laughs are usually genuine. So I know that when I did good, I was doing good. No one's going to fake laugh just because I used to like your band. That's not going to happen.
Right. And you can tell a fake laugh, too.
God, we're just trying to be nice. Like, like it's so bad. But yeah, it's like a punch in the gut when I would catch people off guard with some bullshit. Like you can always tell when it was real. And so, I mean, in that regard, I'm not worried about it being kind of a false sense of security or anything.
Sure.
But sometimes just, I've heard a lot of other people be like, God damn it, getting stage time is hard. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just started and wandered right into this. Everyone was happy to see me. I don't know. It's a friendly bunch.
Sure.
But it might be a little warped. And I admit that. You know.
Yeah.
I'll concede that that's probably a thing.
Sure.
If I moved, to Austin and was like, hey, I'm going to do this too, no one would care, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. It's one of those weird things because I reached out to a lot of them and it was fucking nearly impossible to get up.
That's interesting.
And a lot of them were what you described. You had to go, you had to put your name down, and then you had to stand around. Well, here's the thing is like Minneapolis does kind of suck for comedy right now, but at the same time, there are a surprisingly large amount of places doing open mics.
Yeah,
and like it's
not
the
dry.
worst.
It's not like it's not I didn't know this upon getting the weird
I don't
bug
think it's
up my
as
ass.
well organized as it could be. I guess that's what
I don't
I'm
think
getting at.
anything is. To be fair,
you keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, I don't think music is. It's all a disaster. What the fuck? Again, we're a bunch of 40-year-old children pretending to be adults.
You keep your mouth shut right now so you don't burn any bridges.
Oh,
I haven't gotten into comedy, so I can burn all the comedy bridges I want.
yeah. Well, no, but I'm not calling anybody out. I think everything. But I'm saying I'm lucky. I've gotten lucky to be in everything I've been involved with has actually ran great. And so, like, my view on there's other things. Like, I've never tried to go do it at the one at the Mall of America. Like, so yeah. I don't know.
Have you done I think it's Thursday night at Sisyphus Brewing?
Sisyphus Brewing? No, I hadn't done that either.
That's my favorite one.
I've heard good things.
The room is amazing. At least when I went, the MC was probably the best MC in town, other than maybe Nick Piontek.
He was, by the way, he was just like, oh, yeah, I've never seen you guys with head charge. When I was buddying up with him, like, oh God, you know about stuff.
I've been trying to get him on the podcast. He said he was down. And
Nick, be on the godforsaken podcast. I know you don't live that far from here either. So.
No, and he said he was down to do it. I just haven't been able to get him booked up, and he must be super busy or something. Because like every time I've ever reached out, he's responded, and like we always have interactions. I've known him for a while.
He does seem like he strikes me as a fairly busy guy.
But the last like 3 or 4 times I've just hit him up like, hey, yo, are you still down to do the podcast? Like, I'm not even getting a response from him, so he must just be swamped.
He might be. Well, he's got a pretty real job too. I know that he's balancing.
He's a real estate agent.
Yeah, he's well, and the market right now. Let's make this real exciting for the music fans. The real estate market is ridiculous right now. The house that I live in and I own now with my lovely soon-to-be wife, I believe is just purely the result of black magic. That and me having a bit of means and all, but she works with people who like she works at in the cardiology department of Abbott Northwestern. Where she's an electrotech. She got her dream job because she reaches into like morbidly obese people's pus-filled chest cavities. She loves that. Hey man, if she's not willing to scoop fucking double-fisted handfuls of pus out of an elderly person's chest, she's not going to do that thing in bed you like. Which in my case happens to be the same thing. Scoop out my goo, baby. But yeah, she's a pimple popper fan. Like she loves that shit, and I
do watch that show.
They pay her as if she hates it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it's a rough job. Someone's got to. She fucking loves it, and like, but anyway, she works with some people who are like, that's their knock around wife job in between pregnancies, and I'm not saying that mean, but what I'm saying is. Her and I are on pretty equal footing, which isn't bad. But a lot of the women that work there with her are like, oh, their engineering degree husband, who clearly that was the
Sure, no, I get what you're saying.
That was the carrot on the stick, not their looks. From it was what got them roped in. So they're looking for $500,000 like thing. Like we can't find anything, and it's like we found something cheaper than that, but a jewel of a place. And
right.
I
know what area you're talking about.
Odin or Magic or something it's a 1951. Fucking we're the third owners. It's rock solid. I'm not jealous of the people in the alley behind us. Nice folks, all of them. But they built in the last 2 years bigger places, but they're not the house thing really taught me the meaning of they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah.
Because like one from the 70s might be a shithole, one from the 40s might be a shithole, but something about that, like the early 50s houses are fucking. My parents lived in one of those.
Yep.
And like, or still do really. I think 56.
Well, you got to understand
This
it
is
was it was an immediate post World War II house. So guys came back from the war, and a lot of them still either built their own house or were heavily involved in building their own house.
Oh yeah,
so
they didn't fuck around.
Like nowadays, they throw them up real quick. They're template based.
Yep. They're all identical on
in fact,
upper middle class white people lane.
I swear to God, dude, I think back into the early 50s. I think through 1955, maybe even 1958.
Yeah,
you could still easily order a house through the Sears catalog, and and they sent everything to you and just dropped it off. And dudes would build their house.
They'd sit there and build their houses.
It'd be them and 2 or 3 buddies.
Just drinking
and
beer.
They'd build it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They'd fucking and like back then it was really easy. There weren't as many laws or regulations, so if somebody either had one or they could borrow one, or you could easily rent a fucking big cat. And you dig out your own foundation too.
Yeah, you just have a backhoe.
Like none of this shit was a thing that was like difficult, and there was no insane amounts of permits. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Now you want to build a brand new house in the city of Minneapolis, you're looking at about $50,000 just in permits. To build the house.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they automate a lot of that shit. They're fucking, dude. It's a ridiculous thing. We bought this house. I don't want to talk about it.
Nah, you don't have to throw anything.
I don't want to talk about it on the podcast. But we also sort of lucked out. Like we bought the vacant lot next door.
Yeah, I was going to say that was kind of a cool move.
We doubled our property size. So like what I have for the city of Minneapolis, like I guarantee you, until you get over towards south, where you get towards the Pillsbury mansions.
Yeah.
Until you get to that spot, I guarantee you I have probably the biggest single family lot.
I was going to say when I parked, I'm like, wait, I didn't realize I could park over there, because I'm like, well, this isn't even his house anymore. Oh wait, yeah, it totally is. Yeah, that's handy. And no, yeah,
we did it for the dogs.
Yeah, and that's fair for the wee ones. But yeah,
fucking expensive ass dog kennel is what it is.
Yeah. No, like it's really been interesting, like everything you're talking about. Like I never mentioned this earlier, where I'm like, I understand like property taxes and like concrete surfaces like raise that, so it's like our little walkway. It's really, the people that lived there before, it was like there's lots of flowers and landscaping. They made it real nice, and I'm going to try to keep it up and everything. But like the walkways are all like made of wood, and I was like, it's neat. It's a little hobbit trail, but it was to avoid, because I was like, I'm gonna build a patio back here, because again we have a pretty big yard, and there's a I don't know when. The one thing I don't know is there's an extension built on, or what is that called? An addition built on it. Yeah. I don't know. I think that was that still might have been the 60s or something. That's been there. It's not like it was like in the last few years or anything, because there's like that's where the fireplace is and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well that looks like it's been here for a while. But so that creates this weird little area. I'm like, oh, I'll put in a patio. It's like, you realize your property taxes go up for every square foot of concrete and all this shit. And I'm like, God damn, I finally am an adult. Yep. Like I like the last stuff I'm going to learn in my life is like, I know all of this weird shit of pharmacological and financial to a degree and everything else, and design wise, but fucking property management. I've just been a guy that's lived in rentals forever, dude, saving up to do something like this, just living on the,
like I said, dude, being a homeowner for 3 years now, I think. 3 years. I've related to my government hating grandparents more in these 3 years than the previous 33 combined. Like, it's insane. It's insane how much the government tries to dig in and just gouge you for every fucking nickel and dime. And it's like, man, it's ridiculous, dude. Those motherfuckers, somebody threw away some garbage on my property. So I picked up all the garbage. I reorganized it because I have to. Got it in my bin because they're assholes. And then there was 2 tires they left behind. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to fucking drill out the bottom so they don't hold water. Yeah. I'm going to spray paint these fuckers green, and I'm going to use them as faux planters, right? So I'm going to like set them on the ground and plant a hosta in them. So like they'll come over. It'll be a nice little thing. It'll be a great way to repurpose this, environment friendly, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The government, I had them sitting stacked in the corner of my yard by the gate where you came in.
Yeah.
And I had some rolled up chain link fence because this was before I finished the fence. And it was all sitting up there. And they flagged me for rubbish. And they said I had to clean it up. So I took the chain link fence, dragged it up by the house, set it up next to the house, grabbed those 2 tires, and brought them over and hid them behind these bushels here on my property, like truly in my property over here by these bushes by my garage. And I hid them off to the side because I'm like, I'm using these. They're not garbage.
Yeah.
I want them to understand, like, I'm keeping these for something.
These are building materials.
And that motherfucking city inspector, because I made sure you couldn't see him.
Yeah.
That motherfucker came on my property and walked through my yard and took those 2 tires, and then they sent me a bill for $150. It's that kind of shit that I'm talking about. And then I drive up in the alley every day, and there's fucking garbage and trash or shit all over the fucking place. But the moment I have a tire even organized and hidden in my yard, I get hit with a ridiculous fucking fine. Like, get the fuck out of here. I hate the government so much. You know,
people can only throw rocks at what they can see, and that's a big problem. It's like they can monitor your yard, but they can't monitor the teenagers throwing garbage in the alley, so they're just going to go after you because that's low-hanging fruit.
They want you to pull a $40 permit for every plumbing fixture you replace. So let's say you want to replace all your fucking your taps and shit for your sinks.
Yeah.
You got 2 bathrooms, a kitchen. That's $120 just in permits.
I'm learning right now that
for nothing. What are they doing? Why do they deserve $40?
I've been breaking the law a lot more than I realized until just I've just been doing things like, yeah, whatever. But I've been breaking the law my whole life.
There's a lot of things you can do as a homeowner that you don't have to pull permits for.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that they're like, oh, you're supposed to pull a permit for that. It's like, you just don't fucking tell them. It's none of their business.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not building an addition. You don't need to come out and inspect this for safety. I put a garbage disposal on. It screws onto the bottom of my fucking sink.
Anybody can do this. It's
yeah, but they want you to pull a permit for that. Fuck you. And if you do want me to pull all these permits, then make it a reasonable dollar amount, like $8, and I pull one for the whole house. $8 to change all my fucking fixtures, not a $40 permit for each. Go eat your own ass. Oh, it's so irritating. We can get off the politics thing, dude, because my best stories now. This where we're going into. I probably shouldn't even tell on this because I have been. Well, dude,
very creative with my finances my whole life.
Dude, here's the thing. We've already been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we haven't even really touched on the actual reason I wanted to bring you on, which is I want you to fucking tell people about your comedy channel. Because let me preface this, because here's why I wanted to have you on for this. Obviously, I like you. I'm a huge fan of yours from the music side of things. But I think it is tremendous how you pivoted and became resourceful and used your creativity to remain comedically relevant during COVID. So there's a lot of good comedians in this town, and I'm not talking about the same open micers we were just
there's some serious people.
There's a lot of really good comedians in this town and out in Hollywood and across this country that are not doing anything good with COVID. They're trying to do these stand-up shows online with Zoom. Yeah, they're horrible.
I could tell you from personal experience that I appreciate the effort that people have put in, but it makes me anxious in a way that being on stage in front of people isn't, because there's delays on everybody's reactions. You're kind of in a vacuum. Well, even when the people running it, they did a smart move where they mic themselves up during your set so you can hear them laugh. But some people are on like I dial up internet or something. It's like, so you thought you got nothing, then all the laughs come in the middle of your next sentence, and it's so disorienting that it's upsetting. And I'm like, I like this, and this is fun to kind of talk to people, but I'm like, I mean, I'd rather do this, like maybe I'd be on someone's podcast than try to like, it's just too weird for me, and I can't quite handle it. So sorry, I'm just vehemently agreeing with you as I've been doing.
Yeah, no, you're good, dude. Because it's just hard. It's not the right way. It's not the right medium. Like, music is a little bit luckier in that regard because yes, live music is much better when you have a packed house and a fucking full crowd. However, we can both attest, we've seen some incredible bands that have literally knocked our socks off to an empty room.
Yeah, we're used to that.
Like we've seen there's several bands I'm a fan of still to this day that came through town on tour. Nobody knew who they were, including me. And we played early because we're supposed to be the local band that draws, but they put us on at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. So we played to an empty room. Everybody played to an empty room because it was poorly booked. But that fucking one of those touring bands blew my mind. So we are a little luckier. We could like do a live stream and you can play online and people would be like, as long as it sounds good. Right?
That's a trick.
A lot of these live streams don't sound good on the music side of things. But back to the comedy, there's a few guys out there that I think are doing some really special things. Guys like Dave Chappelle who have the money. They built that little summer camp thing. Bert Kreischer got creative with touring. He's doing the drive-in thing, which I think we need to explore here locally on the music scene because I don't think the shutdowns. I think we're going through next summer.
Yeah,
I do. I don't think we're gonna be like. I think everyone keeps doing this like. You've seen these memes. I don't know if you've seen them. I seen them. It was like, can you all fucking just stay inside? I got shit to do in June. And then June, July,
funny
it was like,
now.
can you guys just wear your masks? I got shit to do in August. And it's like, I was trying to tell people, like, that's not how this works. Like, you don't just stay inside and the disease disappears. You don't just wear your mask and magically it goes away and we can. And they're like, that's what they're doing in Europe. No, they're fucking not. Like they still have partial shutdowns. I'm a part of a bunch of international music groups. Like they figured out a way to do live concerts where they put you in your own little cubicle.
I saw those.
Social distance too. People and they all still have to wear masks. Like the whole world is struggling with this fucking thing. It's not just America.
Yeah,
so that's another going back to the political thing. That's like framing. They're framing this as an American problem. The rest of the world is still struggling. Don't listen to China and Russia that are like, we're over it. We have no more new cases.
They're just lying.
Okay. But anyways,
people need to die all the time. Like I know.
So that's on the touring side of things that I was getting at. But then you got guys like Andrew Schultz, who kind of is like doing a better version of John Oliver, a quicker, punchier John Oliver. And then you've got like what you're doing. And I think this is really fascinating because you have a channel called the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge.
Yes.
But on that channel, you're doing a handful of different shows.
Yes.
Tell people about those shows because I think they're all fascinating, but they're all completely different.
Right. And so that's the thing. The first thing that's been being released is basically I think it was Andrew Schultz. I heard about it. Someone had just mentioned that someone was like, oh, they're turning their comedy bits into almost like, like what you would see on like The Daily Show or some, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I watch a lot of YouTubers. Like I really like internet comment etiquette and these guys who there's a format that already exists where they're basically just being funny and kind of doing stuff or whatever. And like, so I was like, well, the first thing I'm going to do, because it'll be the easiest thing to do quickly, will be to just start, there I am, doing bits that I have that I know kind of work or I've written and haven't even tried, but just turning them into like these short little YouTuber style things. And it doesn't seem weird because it's an existing format. It's like, well, yeah, you just dressed it up with all the green screen stuff and visual aids, but it's basically just a comedy bit with no audience, just bent into the form of like a segment. But then, there are other things. Like we're doing a podcast. Also, I'm doing a cooking show that that Alexis, my lady, is on. She's very funny, and she's one of those people where it's like, oh, you're funny. Let's stick you in front of a camera. And you know how some people, it's like, they're only funny off the cuff at a party. Right. She is funnier than I am. I just stick a camera at her and the shit that comes out of her mouth is incredible. She named the cooking show, it's called Eat My Shit, and it's her and this other friend of ours, and she and him both know how to cook, but he's a little bit kind of a downtrodden, okay, and she just yells at him. It's the funniest fucking thing. We're getting that together. And then I'm doing another thing called I've never thought about it like that, which is more of like a longer, it's not like 3 minutes, more like 10 minutes, where I get into stuff. Like I'd be like, there's one that we're probably shooting next that's about how the Bigfoot thing isn't really that much of a mystery. If you think about how oral histories and all these things work, it's like people used to live alongside of monsters. Like right. And we've heard about all this kind of stuff, but even if you think about it like a big enough dude, right? Like people used to be kind of short. they'd be like the biggest guy in your village, the toughest warrior, might have been 5 foot even 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Like, and then, but genetically, we're made out of the same stuff. So you'll get a shack every once in a while. Now,
Sure.
that guy, when the biggest guy you know is 5 foot tall and like a Yao Ming comes out of the woods because he's hungry and your village is there, it's like,
Right.
how long do you think before that story is about a giant monster?
Right.
Because
Right.
you're not going to forget that story soon when that guy comes to town, just starts pounding people and like. And then I learned something about a lot of native cultures is that they're not real big on when something happened, just that it did. So,
Right.
and there's a good reason for that, which is super interesting, which is they, because it might still be relevant. Things didn't change that much. So it's like, you're not going to stop telling the story about the monster in the woods because you haven't seen it in a while. So for them, it could have been 500 years ago before they crossed the Bering Strait. They saw Gigantopithecus in the Himalayas or something
Right.
like that. And you're going to warn your kids about it with tales tomorrow because you're just going to put your money on maybe that thing's not out in those black woods somewhere still. He very well might be. So because of that, there's not a whole lot of like, oh, well, long ago there was bigger people or big apes that we lived alongside of and whatever like that. So it's like the Bigfoot thing isn't really that mysterious. People have been interacting with things that fit that description forever, and they're just not going to stop telling the story. Right. Why would you? And especially if it's dangerous. Like maybe they're talking about silverback gorillas, and I did a deep dive in it too, where they're like, some of the stories are like, oh, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. They're these big hairy monsters, and other ones are like they're murderous and crazy. It sounds like chimps.
So which one is that going to be? Because this one here that we're looking at, and
that's just goofs. That's just comedy right there.
But this is underdressed and overserved. So this is
Yeah.
one of the shows, and basically these are your stand-up bits.
Yes.
With a little bit of graphics.
Yep.
I here's the thing is I think it's great, especially for two reasons. Number one, you did this as what I refer to as a pivot for COVID.
Yes.
Number two, you're extremely new at comedy.
Yeah.
So when I weigh those two things, that to me, I think you're way ahead of the curve. And so again, we're kind of on a similar journey here. We're both starting this YouTube thing, in a fucking pandemic when people are starving for content. So you're on the same journey, and what I mean by this is like we started around the same time, and we're both still trying to get to our first goal, which is that 100 subs.
Yeah.
So then people can just type in your
57.
actual URL. So I'm going to show people this. You guys go to the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge. You can see it on the screen here now, so you know how to spell it in case you're dyslexic like I am. He's got 57 subs now. Let's see how fast we can get him to 100, because that's what we're really interested in. And that's what we need now, so we can get this fucking custom URL. So you can just type in youtube.com/the alchemical.
I know
whatever.
there's a lot of weird little milestones built into this whole thing.
And I'm still there too. I
Interesting.
got 80 now, so
Nice.
we're humming along quickly. Thank you guys for your support. But yeah. Do you want to play one of these for people, and then we can kind of describe some of the other content you got coming up?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know we could do that. My favorite is the latest one I threw up the other day. You're in big trouble, the drug
This one
testing
here,
one.
right?
Yeah.
I thought I watched this one. Maybe I watched it on my other profile.
You might.
Because you can see I've watched these two.
Yeah.
I swear I watched this one. I bet you I watched it on Facebook or
Maybe.
something.
I didn't put the whole one on Facebook, though. I came up with a bit of a scheme for that.
All right,
But,
let's go ahead and do this.
Very
It
nice.
should work just fine.
I like that face I'm making.
Make sure we go big screen here. I'm looking over to monitor my CPU. My fucking CPU, dude. They updated the broadcast software.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To where now it's even more of a hog
Okay.
on my system. And so now I can barely do this. I'm like, fuck, dude. I'm so frustrated. Like I'm watching it slow down right now.
Interesting.
Come on.
I know it's been such a weird
Hopefully
experiment
it still
too.
looks okay.
Yeah. I've just been pulling these out of my ass too. We've banked like a zillion of these episodes. We just film more of them like last.
Let's let it
weekend.
rip.
All right.
Yeah, you're just spilling everywhere.
Oh God.
Sorry, guys, if it's not in HD. My computer can only handle so much.
It's been so long since I've applied for a job that I forgot all about drug testing. It's important to employers at every level to make sure that the people running their business for them are clean and sober. Fast food, doctor, astronaut, no matter what the job might be. It's fucking bullshit. If I make it all the way through astronaut school doing coke every day, now is not the time to stop me. Look, you could be halfway to Mars and the life support craps out. Skibbity bow! You got an idea man on board, baby! And yeah, I said to Mars. I defended Elon Musk when everyone shit all over him for smoking a doob on the Rogan show. Until I saw that SpaceX and Tesla both have very strict employee drug testing policy. What a fucking dick. You can skip Mars and go straight to Uranus. Besides,
I did watch
what
this.
kind of incompetent
Yeah, it must
boob
have.
can't figure out on their own whether or not the person they're interviewing is some kind of junkie? Well, he pictured his face a lot, and during the fourth callback interview, he kept taking apart the microwave in the break room. But you know what? As long as we don't find anything too weird in this jar of his urine we made him give us, we got ourselves a new pilot. What are you, high? Conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, if I was in charge of a McDonald's, I would test my employees to make sure they were on drugs. I don't want you working here if this is the best you can do. Can you imagine that guy? I wake up every day, sober as a priest, making $7 an hour and lots of smiles. Get out of here, you scary weirdo. That's a mass shooting waiting to happen. If you're gonna work here, you should be on like your 50 UI, high all day long, and selling weed in the parking lot. To me, why do you think I manage a fucking McDonald's? Not because I'm loving it. You know, the one place I never actually got piss tested was one of those mid-level, middle management clip-on tie places where you don't know what your job is or what the company you work for does. Because everyone there is on at least 12 different psychotropic drugs, 10 or 11 of which were prescribed by an actual doctor. Who has time to sort all of that out? Bob, I couldn't help but notice those quarterly reports you handed in were written in blood. Now that's the third time in a row. Is everything okay at home there, big guy? Yeah, fine. HR already knows that he takes Ambien, Adderall, Vicodin, and Xanax every single day. Things are not okay anywhere for Bob. Is it really going to make a difference if he throws a little toad venom into the mix? If a little bit of toad venom at lunch keeps his hands from shaking, who are we to judge? Besides, he brings his own blood from home. He turns his reports in on time. Let's not rock the boat here. And I am not going through another temp agency. Some of those people drink.
It's great, dude. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's too many big time comics that aren't doing anything like this, and that's what I'm really getting at. It bugs me. It bugs me.
Yeah,
how...
I think they should. It's an okay way to still be a comedian. I know why they don't, though. To be honest.
Well, because they're probably not actually that funny.
Well, I mean, I think
they know how to be a professional. Here's what I think. I think they know how to be a professional comic, but they're not actually truly that funny. So they learn how to write a joke instead of like just writing jokes easily. For example, here's a great example. There's a lot of musicians who can't fucking write a song or jam to save their life.
Yeah.
But if you teach them a part, they can shred like fucking Van Halen, no problem. But they can't write and they can't jam. They can't improv.
I've written enough people's albums behind the scenes to say that you're definitely right. And there's some people that are pretty popular
that
have done this.
Yeah.
And who am I? You know?
Yeah. And dude, that's one of my secret favorite things that I've kind of discovered being on the podcast that I didn't really think is like, I say a lot of shit in my everyday life, and people that aren't musicians, they're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And on the podcast, I see these things and people are like, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that is definitely true. And it's just, I knew these things were true. I don't need the validation, but it's one of those sneaky little things I never thought of where it's like, yeah, shit like that. Like I forget. That's not a well-known fact unless you really have been around the industry and some really talented, famous musicians that can't jam and they can't write.
Yep.
They're great performers. That's what they do. And that doesn't mean they're not good and they lack talent. It just means that they can't when their songwriter or their producer's busy and COVID happens, they can't just pivot and be like, fuck it, I'll just write 2 more albums now.
Yeah, that's
they can't.
Can I say that I'm you know, there's a lot of people who have enriched themselves during COVID who I feel like it's kind of awful, but I am also one of those people where I've been busier and made more money during this because being as Don Draper once said, creative, the least important, most important thing ever. It's like, oh, now that everybody needs content, the guy who you're like, well, what's your real job? Oh, you just come up with things, you write songs and come up with funny words and da-da-da-da-da. That's not real. That doesn't build a skyscraper. But it's like, yeah, well, no one's driving into work anymore, so we don't really need these skyscrapers, although there's little contracts are still being built, but no one's going to be in them soon. But it's like, gosh, everyone just wants to, like, we're out of Netflix shows. Yep. Who the fuck's going to make new content? Da-da-da-da. It's like, oh, look who came crawling back to the video guy that knows how to shine up your stuff and make it look good. And I'm not being bitter. I was pretty busy before anyway, but I'm just saying that,
but you have a good point, too, because there's two bands that I'm
good time.
There's two bands I'm genuine fans of that have dropped albums during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I know of a plethora of bands, and I'm not even criticizing them for this because one of them has been on the podcast, the Reaping Boys. They had an album done, but they don't feel like they're big enough because they feel like they need to release it and tour on it, and it's part of a whole plan. So they're holding back their album for an entire year.
I'd put it out. I would put it out. I would, because here's the thing.
I trust Dan's business decision.
Oh, I do too.
They're in a death metal band
for a long time. But I mean, I think it's all based on, like, dude, how long though? I mean, and this is what I'm doing, and this is an interesting parallel we can draw, and also answer the question, like, why aren't bigger comics doing this? Bigger comics are scared to death of burning their bits because they're famous. They're like, I wanted to put this on a special. I can't just make it into a YouTube video because now everyone will see it and I'll have to come up with new shit. But I'm like, dude,
that's what you'd be doing anyway.
You're not going to be doing things for a while. So you might as well burn it and write new shit. Same thing with a record. Shit. Like, put your record out and you're going to be stuck at home for another year. So write another one and then maybe you'll be able to tour on that.
And
why not?
Not only that, dude, but going back to the comedian thing, like, if you were oh my god, dude.
Also, I'm not famous, so I can burn anything I want. Most people coming to see me don't know who I am.
But fuck that. Just because we're not famous doesn't mean we don't understand how the business works. We still understand the strategy. So think about this. No, I'm defending your point.
Okay.
You're really onto something here. Because think about this, dude. Those comics are saying, I don't want to burn my bits by putting them on YouTube because then I have to write new bits.
Yeah.
Because I was going to put this on a special. Well, here's the reality, man. You were going to work out that bit on tour trying to make money off of it before it's truly ready to put on a special, because you tour, you get paid to tour if you're a big comic,
that's how you do
right?
it.
And you burn those bits. You don't go back to those those same towns and do that same set before your special.
Yeah.
Right? You tour on it once in as many cities as you can get your hands on until the bits are good enough to do on your special. You shoot your special, you trash the bits, you write new ones.
Yep.
This is the equivalent of doing that, monetizing those bits along that journey, but there's no special at the end of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but it doesn't matter because you're going to earn residual income on those bits on YouTube because you're still building. So you're thinking, well, I'm new, so I can burn anything. Well, here's the thing is you're new. You also can't monetize.
Yeah.
Yet. So these guys can. If Nikki Glazer did exactly what you're doing right now, she would monetize.
Oh, she could make money.
She would be at 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours within a month.
Yep.
She would monetize immediately. By doing so, she would then be monetizing not only immediate revenue off of those bits, but residual passive income off those bits. And then she can move on to writing new ones, keeping that skill level. Because, dude, you know damn well you're one of the first people that's a true at least comic spirit. We kind of talked about this. Do we dare call ourselves comedians because we haven't been doing it long enough?
Been very long,
but we understand comedy. We're funny people. We're trying to get into comedy, and we're musicians. And whether you're doing comedy or music, you're using your creative brain, which is a muscle and needs to be in shape, constantly worked out. So if you're holding on to old bits, right?
Yeah.
And not writing new ones, hypothetically, I don't know who. Name a Brian Posehn, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
whoever you want. I don't want to pick on Nikki Glazer. I'm not actually accusing anyone of anything. I'm just hypothetically saying a famous comedian who has money and might be holding out for this because of that logic. You're you're leaving shit on the table, and you're putting yourself in basically like a mental obesity mode. Like you're not allowing yourself to stay in shape. You want to come out of COVID in shape so you can hit the ground with new bits that haven't made it to your YouTube page, and then once you work them out and they hit your special, not everyone's going to watch your special.
Yeah.
So maybe you still work them out, and then you do them, and then you put them on YouTube. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, be creative, fucking pivot your
I think
shit.
this is forcing us to be creative, and I think that's why I'm having so much fun, because I do a little bit better in a structureless mayhem setting. It's why I haven't had a 9 to 5 in I don't know how long, and it's because I do better at finding things I can grab onto, and that's just the same type of thinking where it's like, well, I don't know. But hey, who fucking knows? Maybe I just did something here. Maybe it'll be like, it only gets so popular, but some other comics are like, oh, I just didn't realize we could do that. Well, I'm going to do that. People who are already way more. So I'm like, I'll be a little footnote of who actually started this? This guy you haven't heard of, but he kind of formatted it. To me, it doesn't seem like that big of a stretch, but people are shockingly formulaic in their thinking. Like people in bands and
it's a copycat world.
Yeah, you're like, well, this is how this works, and it only works this way. And you could have someone argue well, you're putting that. Some of these I haven't done, like the drug testing thing. That was a bit I'd written that I've never done in front of anybody. And the best I could do is I've been doing it in front of you here and there. I'll break down a chunk of it, and if it gets a laugh, it stays. But I sneak it into conversations. I'm like, that's the closest I can get to an open mic right now.
Here's the thing.
So if it gets a laugh, I just start putting it together until it's a bit of a script, and then
that's brilliant. And that's exactly what you should do: is come on podcasts like this. You work out a story or bits that you're trying out. I do it. I riff ideas. People have no idea I'm doing it. I'll interject a one-liner. I'll work on a funny concept. It's a conversation piece. But dude, Bill Burr does it. Kreischer does it. I've busted these guys because I'm such huge fans of them.
Yeah, me too.
I'll have watched all their specials, and then I'll be dicking around down here cleaning or working on something or scheduling the podcast, and I'll put on one of my favorite things to do is go to Conan O'Brien's YouTube page and just play clips.
Yep, they're doing it on the couch there.
Yeah, and then
that you hear later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're having a conversation, but no, is what it really is Conan has been made privy to these jokes and these stories, and he sets you up and then allows you to rant, but it's not a rant. It's you doing your bit and working it out. That's why Bill Burr, Nikki Glazer, Bert Kreischer, this is why they don't go up there with a fucking microphone and do that type of thing they used to on Leno.
They sneak on you. I didn't know. But you know what? They've been doing it forever. I found a thing of Rodney Dangerfield doing it on Carson where he actually did a set, but when then he came and sat down, Carson was working on more softballing him things, and he was it was obviously Rodney Day was like, well, that's why my wife kicked me out of the house, and he had Carson doubled over laughing at the stuff that he was just saying in the chair. And I think I think it's a long tradition that I just didn't recognize because I didn't used to do comedy, so I don't know what I'm saying.
I didn't know it until I already knew the bits from the guy's special, and then seen a clip
go back
from before the special ever came out. So it was like, oh, I see what's going on here. And it was like, the craziest thing is like Bill Burr, I'll just use him as an example. Bill Burr's on, and I'm going to make up years to just keep this analogy easy. Bill Burr is on Conan in, say, 2013 to promote the special that's about to come out. But the bit he's working on with Conan is actually one he's currently touring on, which won't appear on a special that he's recording till 2014, which won't come out until 2015. I didn't see the special until 2017 or 2018.
And you're like, hey, wait a minute.
So it was like, holy fuck. By the time this bit actually made it to my ears, he had thought of that and had been working on it way back then in 2013, which means he wrote that and came up with that idea up to a year before that.
Oh, yeah, very likely.
And it was like, holy fuck, dude, I didn't realize for me how cerebral that was. I thought they just wrote a bunch of jokes, toured on them, filmed them, toured, filmed, filmed. I didn't realize it was like there's and I think it's a better way to work out bits than going back to what you were saying. It's like coming on these podcasts, doing shit like this. I think that still works. Once you kind of refine them in conversations and you're like, oh, I'm getting a couple chuckles.
Yeah, and I'm sure. And the other fun part, and I think there's something to be said about that. I think it took me. I learned later on by listening to comedy podcasts that that people do these live over and over again. And that's the only way to really write them. But I think that what we're talking about, where you find ways to sneak them in. I think if you can make one person laugh in conversation with you, I'm not saying that then it goes right to the special, but I'm saying that you can sneak around. We're kind of stuck, not able to be doing these shows or anything, so you can sneak around it a little bit. And I think some people, it's just because I think we get lucky having the background in music, where it's like, I don't need any help being on stage. I have that. I just need to know whether it falls flat or it gets a laugh. And, and when I go on stage, it's like you've seen it years ago. It's almost the same as like, hey, but some people, the first time they go on stage, they do start out as comedians. So it's like, okay, they're dealing with stage fright and having to come up with shit. And I think one of the reasons I'm getting away with this a little bit is because, like, I just need an audience, even if it's not a formal setting, even if it's just someone else at the grocery store. Like, if I make someone laugh in Target, like, I've done that where I've been like, I find a way to work something in, talking to the lady at Target, and if I get the, oh, you came up with that all by yourself, gee, I'm like, okay, well, obviously that's funny to a stranger that probably doesn't like me because they're stuck at work and I'm a customer. I'm a polite, genteel customer, and I try to be. But it's like they're not excited to see me as they would be if you were already a famous comedian. So that's as close to a cold call as you can fucking get without going on stage. And if you can go bust up people, especially if someone that does, obviously comes from a different walk of life, they don't look like you, whatever, and you make them laugh unexpectedly, you're like, well, then I know this works and I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it again. And when things open up, people, if you want to be funny, go sign up for stage time and go do it. But I think my whole career is me being like, okay, how can I bend the rules here so I don't have to do this, what feels like the long way around? And I've gotten away with a lot. And I think the older I get, the better I get at it. And then comedy's kind of like, okay, fine, there's a roadblock here. I'm not going to turn around and go home, though. I unscrewed it, took it apart, and nobody was watching, so I just kept driving. And like, it's like, oh, you just keep a screwdriver in your car? It's like, yeah, they're like $3 at Walmart. It's easy. I never thought of that.
All right, let me ask you, man. We're coming up on 3 hours.
Okay.
2 hours and 50 minutes, just about.
Hey, nice.
So tell people about these other 3 concepts that are coming up. Because again, in case people are confused, the channel is the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge. The first show that's up now is called Overdressed and Underserved.
Underdressed and Overserved.
Sorry. I knew I was going to fuck that up. I knew I was going to say that.
Oh, by the way, do you get the joke with that?
Yeah.
Drunk and naked, or naked and drunk.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because somebody didn't. I was like, really? I almost got arrested for being naked and drunk and disorderly one time, and the cop kind of just put some pants on, and I was just like, all right, I'm sorry, sir. I know that I'm underdressed and overserved.
Dude,
he's like, shut up, go.
It's got a lot of it's got a lot of ways you can read it too.
Yeah,
and that's why I love it. I love it because it's like, and then you're doing the opposite. You're dressed up while doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like
there's an irony there.
Yeah, well, and I love the play on that too because you're still saying underdressed and overserved. So and then you've kind of got like this Ron White vibe in these videos.
Yeah, they're kind of boozy.
Yeah,
yeah,
but not like in a rip-off way, but just in a way that it makes it work.
Him or Stanhope. I love my drunk comedians. Yep. I'm a big fan of all that.
It's great. I think it's really great. And that is that show. So what are these other 3? So it's one you mentioned is a podcast.
One is a podcast called Rum Dumpster, and that's 2 of my favorite ladies, Alexis and Meredith, who are just. See, I'm trying an experiment with that too because I'm like, I'm not going to make it the John Wheeler podcast. Maybe I'll try that eventually, but these 2 are really funny when they get going. And they work surprisingly well on camera. So I'm on it, but I'm like Andy Richter. I've made myself Andy Richter. I just let them go.
Gotcha.
And they'll download TikTok videos like Your Mom's House or something and just talk
So basically, that's their podcast. What's it called?
Rum Dumpster.
Rum Dumpster. And okay, but that'll be on your guy. So it's kind of the channel's almost like a collective then. The Alchemical Cocktail Lounge is kind of like a collective.
Meredith helps me with this a lot, and we wanted it to be like UHF.
Perfect.
Where it's like, who wants a drink from the fire hose? Just any show. What do you got?
It kind of reminds me too of All Things Comedy and Your Mom's House.
Yeah.
So like they have multiple different things under that banner. It just makes sense. It just makes things easier. You can consolidate everything to one channel, help cross promote and do all kinds of.
And I think it's a challenge too. It's not just me sticking a camera at myself for all of it. Some of it I'm like kind of on the other side. Like, all right, like the podcast I'm on, but again, I'm kind of Andy Richtering that one. But I'm controlling it a bit, but I'm also chiming in. But I'm making it about them because everything they say when it's not being recorded is a waste because they're so fucking funny that I'm like, all right,
awesome.
Look, like, and I just like egg them on and try to make it worse.
Just poke the bear.
And it's really funny. But then Eat My Shit, the cooking show is like that, where that's Alexis and our friend Bill, where she basically just kind of dumps all over him, and we added that almost has like a Tim. Those are getting done too. A Tim and Eric thing to it. So it's a cooking show, but it's really, really manically, frenetically edited, and it has ASMR parts in it for no one who likes that would actually watch this, but it's like shh, and they're like cutting up stuff, and then it goes right back to screaming and like eat my shit's funny, and then you actually have to eat it, and I might come in from off camera and eat it, and then the other one is
so you're almost producing that show.
Yeah. I'm trying to try my hand at like, can I make this not just a cult of personality? Can I go, okay, well, look, I know how to put things together and edit stuff, so I know other people that are funny and are willing to do this and are over enough where they're not strangers in these unprecedented times. But then and then the other one is another one of me where it's a bit more of like almost a sci-fi channel show or something where I'm in front of the green screen, but it's not just comedy bits. I'm like picking something apart, and that one's called I've Never Thought About It Like That, where it's just kind of like, schools are made by the same people that make jails, and this is why this. Some of them are about advertising and propaganda are like the same thing, and just picking things apart and then trying to make it funny. So it's like, let's say that in this was an episode. There's a long story behind this, but there's some trial ones that probably will never come out. But the one about advertising was I go through each tenet of marketing and each tenet of propaganda and point out how they're the same thing, and that's not even a secret, but some people don't get that. And the one about called Plain Folks, and I'm like talking about how it's I'm just a simple down home billionaire like you, not like those fat cats on TV from New York City. And it's like, Dad, that guy's on TV and he's from New York and he's rich. He's like, well, you shut up. And it's like I do different voices to signify that I'm pretending to be somebody else. But anyway, there's all sorts of
they're almost skits.
Yeah, there's little jabs in there too where I'm like, I think you've probably seen an example of this Plain Folks type of marketing. Just don't bring it up at Thanksgiving.
Gotcha.
Like, so I don't have to say it, but you know what I'm talking about.
So
like,
they're almost like
that one will be
they're
good.
almost like infomercials, but not for a product, but more like a short version of like a Discovery Channel show where you break something down, but it's more in a skit form, like in an infomercial. Like, because in those documentaries,
it's educational, but it's like kind of fucked up and weird. Like, and the intro sequence looks like an old. Like, because in those BBC One presents The Learning Book. Do. It's like I really cheesed it up like that on purpose. So it's just
like, that's why I said like an infomercial.
Scary. Yeah,
because like you actually get those little cutscenes in infomercials. Oh, ma, and it's like super hilarious because they know if they try to. Whereas like those documentaries, they'll do a dramatization, but there's never dialogue.
Yeah,
it's just somebody like acting something out in the background, and they try to like make it spooky or whatever.
Especially the cheap ones.
I like it, dude. I like it. All right, guys, listen. I want everybody to go to his channel. I showed it to you earlier, the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge. The name of it's also in the bottom here. There isn't a URL, which is why I'm asking you guys to do this. Everyone, go to his page, slap the subscribe button for him. Do my channel as well if you haven't subscribed to my channel, because we're both trying to hit that first 100 so we can get a custom URL. It's a stupid thing.
It's free to just subscribe. Like, you could just do that and stop paying attention if you want, but just doing it helps.
Yeah, huge. And it sounds stupid, but 100 subs is a mark we got to hit so we can get our custom URL, and there's things we can do with that to help us build our channel once we get our own URL. It's the first step towards legitimization and monetization.
Yep.
That's why I stumbled on that. So the biggest thing you can do to support both of us right now is subscribe to our channels. If you like this video specifically, hit like, subscribe, share. Word of mouth is the best promo there is out there.
Yep.
John's links, description to all his music. We didn't even get to half the fucking bands.
Oh, I know.
Which is fine. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back and do this again.
Oh yeah,
especially once you get some more content out there too.
Yeah.
Because trust me, man, some people will. I mean, people listen to my podcast. I'm surprised. I'm shocked. I'm honored. And you will get at least a few clicks and a few listens out of this. So hopefully, I mean, here's the thing: if my 80 subs went and subbed to you right now, you'd be over 100.
Oh yeah, I'd be today. There. So yeah, it's.
So think of it that way, guys. Like we already have enough equity here to get him over 100, and hopefully some of the people that are following you will come like this, and we can both get under 100. And
Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch this little journey of ours
Moving
together.
on up.
Yeah, the only other people I know doing this are way ahead of me. My boy Jason's got like 900 subs. He's about to truly monetize. So he started about a year and a half ago, something like that.
So a year and a half. That's not bad though.
No, and that's
pretty good
about the average, about a year and a half for that.
Okay.
So all right, man. This is fun, dude. Let's do this again. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a fucking blast.
Thanks
it was
for inviting me.
And next time I will make sure I'm not so underdressed so I don't look like such a slob. I should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
All right, peace out, guys.
Oh, yeah. That's fun, dude. Yeah, man. It was good.